Hey there, guys. I'm popping in here just a couple of minutes early, 10:50 a.m. Excuse me. On January 1st. Happy New Year, by the way. What a what a way to kick off the new year, right? There is supposed to be, and of course, I want to make sure everybody can hear my audio properly. If we could do a quick audio check, just somebody let me know that you can hear my audio. I do have some audio playing in the background, of course, of this live stream from a local New Orleans affiliate, because we are going to have the press conference coming up here shortly from New Orleans on updates of what they already know, some updates on what they've. See, this is some footage I hadn't seen before. This is apparently whenever this is actually happening. Okay, cool. Y'all can hear me. So thanks. Press conference should be coming up in about 9 minutes. This is what I know. Of course, those of you who don't already know, I do live here in Louisiana. Thankfully, I live as far away from New Orleans as I could possibly get and still be in the state of Louisiana, or pretty much. A lot of questions. Naturally, people are doing stupid things that don't know what they're talking about. At the press conference this morning, early this morning, you had the completely 100% DEI staff from the idiotic mayor of New Orleans, Latoya the Destroyer. That's what we call her here in Louisiana. She is really a stupid person. Like, she's not just stupid because I disagree with everything she does. She is a dumb person. To reflect the the people of New Orleans, she continues to get reelected. You also had the DEI hire police chief, who is an idiot. She's brought in from somewhere else. She's failed multiple times in other areas, but just like in politics, you fail up in that world. And she managed to become the police chief in New Orleans. And of course, then you had the DEI hire for the FBI that came in. She was equally dumb. She might have been the dumbest person in the room at that point, to be quite honest with you, because Mayor Latoya the Destroyer came out and immediately said that New Orleans had just experienced an act of terrorism. And 5 minutes later, the FBI DEI hire said this was not an act of terrorism. And then within an hour, they came out and said the FBI did, this was terrorism. So I do have multiple sources going on right now. I do have a television on right now here. I do have the stream that you're looking at right here, which is a local New Orleans affiliate. In about 7 minutes, we will have an update from a press conference from New Orleans. But this is what we know so far. Obviously, this person maneuvered a Ford F-150. One thing I do want to mention, this Ford F-150 truck was an electronic vehicle. I don't know if you've noticed on the tailgate, but there is a little lightning sign. This is an EV, as the left so affectionately call them. A couple of things to understand about this. Now, this may not have been a vehicle of choice from this terrorist, right? But it certainly was the vehicle that they used. And what is something that makes perfect sense if you are trying to mow down as many people as possible? Well, the EV vehicles are very heavy. The batteries and everything like that are super heavy. So they are going to be able to, from a momentum standpoint, a sheer physics standpoint, they're going to have more terminal ability, if you will. Let's just call it that. Also, the amount of torque that those vehicles have, the quickness to accelerate, the quietness of an electric vehicle. An electric vehicle is a perfect vehicle to produce this type of carnage. And that's one thing that I don't hear a whole lot of people talking about. If you're going to try to duplicate this type of terrorist act, an electric vehicle is perfect. Again, the weight of it, the quick acceleration, the torque, and how quiet they are. Those are all things that are super important. So whether this person chose this vehicle for that reason or not, who knows? And we'll find out probably at some point. FBI has taken over the investigation, so we're likely not to find out much because of the FBI. And who knows at what level the FBI was involved in this. And I say that sarcastically, but truthfully also. At least who knows at what point intelligence was involved in it, the United States intelligence. So, a couple of other things. That vehicle also, this came out a short time ago. That vehicle was scanned from a license plate reader at Eagle Pass, Texas, which is on the west side of Texas. It came across the border from Mexico 2 days ago, which would have been Monday. They are claiming that their IED, there was at least one IED in the vehicle. I don't know at this point what if that was an active IED or something that they just presumed was an IED based on the way it looked. It is said that this person got out of the vehicle after he came to an abrupt stop. It looks like he ran into um, that lift that was in the middle of Bourbon Street. At that point, slammed into it. I think that's why the hood was all bent up. I know he had run into people and things like that, but I don't think that's what peeled the hood up. I think that's from the impact of the lift that he ran into that ultimately stopped him. He immediately got out, started to fire upon police officers. Now, I say upon police officers because at that point, I think most other people had kind of scattered. I don't know if he shot any of the other people out there that were non-law enforcement, but I do know two law enforcement officers were, in fact, hit. That's at that point that he was fired back upon and ultimately killed. I did notice, as I'm sure most of you did, that there was oddly enough, and if I'm looking at some of the pictures right now, there was on the I guess where you would have your normally a trailer hitch. You know how you see people driving around flying these flags? There was a flag on the trailer hitch, looked like a piece of PVC that came up, and there's a bundled up black flag, which we know what that typically is, but it looks like somebody bundled that flag up as if to hide it. We know that the media and certainly these people in New Orleans and the FBI, of course, because the FBI is not our friend. If they were there first, they likely bundled this flag up. Now, maybe this person was hiding his flag and meant to unveil his flag at some point to show it as he drove down there and just forgot to unbundle it. But the flag, very oddly enough, why would you go through the trouble of putting a flag on the back of your vehicle, but yet you bundle it up so nobody can see it? Well, just don't put it there if you didn't want anybody to see it. So it's very suspect that the flag is bundled up and hidden at this point. I do believe, in my opinion, that local officials are probably the ones who bundled it up to keep people from immediately coming to the correct conclusion that this could have been terrorism. A little bit unusual that this, and it was Texas plates on the vehicle, by the way. You guys have seen that as well. I do think it's a little bit unusual at this point. We don't know what the makeup of the person was. I can tell you that if this had been a white Christian man that voted for Trump, you would know his name, you would know his social security number, you would know his next of kin 10 times back on the tree, on his family tree. So we can pretty much come to the quick and most likely correct conclusion that this was not some guy named Jim Smith who is a Catholic or Baptist or whatever religion you want to choose, and voted for Trump. If there had been a Trump bumper sticker on that vehicle, we would know we would know the guy's DNA at this point. So we do know that. This is a great example as to why I say all the time, and I don't try to preach to people, but why I tell you from what I do, I don't like big crowds. Just not a fan of them. I think that people are way too complacent. I used to work in New Orleans. I worked for a utility company, and that's where our corporate office was. And we routinely were downtown. We're actually more towards the Hyatt Regency whenever we went there, because our main office was connected to the Hyatt Regency and the Superdome, that whole area. So we frequented that area all the time. Sometimes we were there for days on end, and I'd lived at the Hyatt, and we would walk to Bourbon Street from the Hyatt. Bourbon Street is about 10 or 15 minute walk from the Superdome. And again, that's where my office was. That's where my hotel was. Although if you've ever been to New Orleans, you know that the Hyatt, the Entergy building, which is the electric company that I work for, and the Superdome and the arena where the Pelicans play, those are all connected. You can essentially walk amongst them really without even having to go outside. So all those are right there. So when I say the Hyatt, I'm pretty much talking about the Superdome because it's all connected. But again, about a 10 or 15 minute walk from the Superdome is where this took place. So this is not far away. the heightened security for today's Sugar Bowl is a little strange. I actually heard somebody say, um, will they cancel it? They're not going to cancel the Sugar Bowl. I can assure you of that. They will not cancel the Sugar Bowl today. That's still going to happen. If it had happened right outside the Superdome, they would still have this game. It's just there's too much money tied up in that. But interesting that this is all, again, and I'm pausing for a second because that news conference should start any moment now. I'm looking at two different news stations right now, the one you see, and then I'm looking at another one on a television inside my studio here, where we're waiting for that 11 a.m. press conference, and it is 11 a.m. on the dot right now. So we should see this. Let me turn this report up here real quick while we wait. This is a local New Orleans affiliate, and I know they'll carry that live stream.
Looking more so at the corner of the 1200 block of Spain, and we are here because a presence had began to develop over here with New Orleans Fire, as well as ATF, FBI, and NOPD. They are set up in this area, and we are not sure why, but we do believe that it is connected to that terrorist attack that took place over on Bourbon Street.
Interesting.
And we also want to add that law enforcement is investigating explosive device that was a part of this investigation, and we're trying to figure out where an explosive device, whether it's just one explosive device that's under investigation or multiple. We don't want to speculate, but we're still trying to figure out where that plays in this entire investigation as well. And so, I mean, if you are going to see law enforcement presence all the way from Bourbon Street, Canal, through Rampart Street, and over here on the other side near the Marigny St. Roch area as well. And we do believe that law enforcement and the fire department is surrounding a home here at the 1200 block of Spain, although we, again, are standing at the corner of Mandeville and Marais because this is the closest that we can get to that investigation over here on this.
This is interesting right here. Real quick.
Reed reporting live again. Mandeville and Marais there. Winston's fourth scene of the morning. One of the first reporters to respond.
Dump that audio real quick.
And this kind of lines up with what we heard.
So what this guy was just reporting on, and this is a local affiliate, by the way. It looks like in Mandeville, if you're not familiar with the New Orleans area, Mandeville is essentially it's like a part of New Orleans, but a suburb of New Orleans, if you want to call it that. Trust me, the people in Mandeville do not claim to be residents of New Orleans. So don't ever offend a person from Mandeville and tell them that they're from New Orleans. They will never claim that. But they're saying that there's an investigation in Mandeville right now. Like right now, what you just saw with those fire trucks and police cars, that was live. And they're saying that's potentially and more than likely connected to this. So I wonder if he had a contact, the person, the terrorist, I wonder if he had a contact locally. I don't know. Interesting. And that just popped up while we were watching this. So it sounds like there's a slightly another component involved here that we may find out shortly, which, I mean, honestly, that may delay the news conference that was supposed to start 4 minutes ago now, because if there's something breaking in this investigation, even though the leaders of New Orleans and the local FBI seem to be extremely stupid, I know the leaders of New Orleans are stupid and the police chief is stupid, but they still might want to be involved in what's going down right here. Very interesting that seemingly just popped up.
We also know that an explosive device was found. It is being examined as to see how whether it poses any type of threat, and also the FBI is trying to determine whether there are more explosive devices. We don't know exactly where it was found, other than with the suspect, near the suspect at some point. We heard the City Council President Helena Moreno talking a little bit earlier about those bollards that were installed on Bourbon Street to kind of keep traffic out, or vehicle traffic from going.
That's another thing. They're talking about the bollards. You guys know what I'm talking about. I mean, the simplest way to describe bollards, because it is not a word that's used very often, is just like if you see the little yellow post in front of the 7-Eleven to keep somebody from driving through the door, the concrete little post, concrete filled post. That's what That's essentially what they're talking about. If you've ever been to Bourbon Street, there are bollards. People are confusing this with when they talk about the bollards, and I'm looking at some of the little, I guess, what were they doing? No, they're not doing it yet. I see the little road closure things that they lay across with the orange and white stripes on it. That's not a bollard. What we're talking about in New Orleans, what they have is they have these bollards that go down in the street. Typically, when there's not a big event going on in New Orleans, we'll have those down in the ground so they don't protrude up. They can be moved up and down based on what the events are taking place. And if it's a big weekend, like even if there wasn't a football game there this weekend, with it being New Year's Eve, they would have raised those bollards up. And those things obviously serve a couple of different purposes. When you see them up as a driver, because you can go, most of these streets are one way that cross Bourbon Street, except for Canal, where supposedly this guy entered. Canal is a big 4-lane, I believe it's still a 4-lane, with a trolley rail in the middle of it. And then you can turn down Bourbon Street. You can drive down Bourbon Street typically during the day. You can drive straight through there. The bollards will go up when it's time for people just to walk, and no traffic can go down there. If this guy was able to drive down Bourbon Street, it sounds to me like the bollards were not up, and they're claiming that they were replacing the bollards for the Super Bowl, which is coming up in February. This was a project that started last month. It's January now, so 2 months ago in November. And next month in February, the Super Bowl is going to be in New Orleans. So supposedly they were changing these bollards out, I think, to steel bollards. I don't know what the previous ones were. I haven't been to Bourbon Street quite some time. I'm too old and I live too good of a life to care what happens on Bourbon Street anymore. So I don't go down there anymore. But the bollards seemed perfectly fine to me before. I believe they were concrete filled steel bollards before. So I don't know why they're changing them. Maybe they're changing them so they can put pretty signs on them, pretty labels that will stick to them that say Super Bowl, whatever. I mean, I'm joking, but that's probably the case. It's probably for aesthetic reasons that they're doing this. The NFL may have even mandated, hey, can y'all do some things to brighten this up? Because, you know, when the Super Bowl goes to a city, they'll rebuild portions of the town, of the city, just because the Super Bowl is coming. They'll renovate complete areas just because the Super Bowl is coming. So it would not surprise me if these bollards were being changed out for aesthetic reasons, not because the old ones didn't work. The old ones just might have been ugly and old and outdated looking. But they did have bollards there before, and you could have put those bollards up and kept them up. I wonder if the bollards were down or removed, and that allowed them to drive that truck to drive through there. Because again, any of you have been to Bourbon Street before. If you've walked Bourbon Street, you've walked past those bollards before. Because when the street is not able to be driven on, those bollards will be up. And it sounds like they weren't there. If this guy was able to go this far down Bourbon Street, now, granted, he killed 10 people. Looking at where this picture is right now, you can see where he is. And of course, that's the man lift that he ran into that ultimately stopped him. This looks like more of the towards, Canal Street. If you're familiar with Bourbon Street is a long way. It's several blocks long. I mean, it might be 10, 15 blocks long, maybe more than that. I don't know. Never took the time to count. Of course, you can see to the right-hand side there. Now they took it away, but I was going to point out the flag on the back of the truck. Yeah, see, you can see how tall this is likely. Yep, there's Canal Street right there. I was going to say it looks like it's right off of Canal Street, like not too far down on Bourbon. And as you can see, look to the right there. You see that street sign that's blue? That says Canal. That's the 4-lane main road with a trolley rail that goes in the middle of it. That essentially Bourbon Street starts right there. Like all the parting, that's where you have, the Redfish Cafe is right there. Great seafood, by the way. So this looks like this guy didn't go too far down. So the bollards could have been up in the rest of Bourbon Street, and it wouldn't have mattered because it looks like he didn't get very far. From that last shot that we just saw, I believe he only got a few blocks down Bourbon Street. Yeah, see, if you look at this view that you're looking at here, this is Canal Street that we're looking at. So we're looking down Bourbon Street from Canal. Canal is running left to right here, and Bourbon Street is running north south. Yeah, look, here's that shot again. You can see to the right there on the back of that truck where there's that black flag that looks to be bundled up, like somebody's trying to hide what's on the flag. That sure looks indicative of an ISIS flag to me. I'm certainly not going to sit here and say that it is, because who knows if this truck came from Mexico, and if it was somebody in Mexico that was trying to do this carnage. It's possible that I've seen Mexican flags that have their own cartel flags, that some of them are black as well. I can tell you what it's not. It's not a Trump flag. It's not a MAGA flag or anything like that. But this is a super interesting story, and I'm really shocked that they haven't started the press conference yet, to be honest with you. I believe that if you guys are just now tuning in, you may not have seen this, but there was these guys here locally that were watching. It's a local affiliate in New Orleans, and they're getting some news and some feeds locally that you're not seeing from the nationals. Like, I'm looking at a national news right here on my screen above my my computer screen in here in my studio, and they're not reporting any of what these guys are reporting. These guys just reported that there is something going on in Mandeville, which is right there in New Orleans, excuse me, and that there's a heavy police presence, and I saw a fire truck there too, which, that's probably for precautionary reasons. But they are saying that they believe that that is linked to what happened, which is really odd, because in the Mandeville area, that's not like a touristy part of New Orleans. If you're familiar with the area, that's where good people like you and I would go to live if you wanted to live near this crap hole of New Orleans. So it's very unusual that if somebody in Mandeville, and it looked like it was in a neighborhood street, very unusual if somebody there is tied to this, but they are, or something's going on with it. That's a great point. This is a really good point. And boy, I'm gonna mispronounce this. Antoniak 1234 says made an Airbnb. That is an outstanding point, because that would make a lot more sense to me. And some of those homes in the Mandeville area, there are a lot of Airbnbs that are used a lot, because when people go to New Orleans, those that know about New Orleans know that they probably don't want to stay in New Orleans, so they will stay at an Airbnb. And I know Mandeville is known for having Airbnbs there. So excellent point. I had not even thought about that. That's very, very smart. This is unusual. With this press conference being delayed, I can almost see New Orleans police briefing today. Now they're pushing it back to 2 p.m. They're saying 2 p.m. Eastern. So something is likely going down. So I was premature, I guess. When they said 11 p.m., I scheduled this live stream for 11 p.m. But now they're saying 2 p.m. today Eastern time, which is going to be 1 p.m. our time. So in about 2 hours, they're going to have a press conference, which, by the way, I'm curious. There's a lot going on with this, guys. The Sugar Bowl, you remember, is being played there today. What time? Oh, that's a night game. So Notre Dame and Georgia play tonight in New Orleans at the Superdome, 10 minutes away from where this took place, at 7:45. Now, we're Central Time, by the way, so I'm speaking to you in Central Time time. So if they're going to have their conference, it's going to be 1 p.m. our time. So it's going to be, roughly 7 hours before kickoff of the game. So, boy, it makes you wonder what's really happening here to have them push this press conference back another 2 hours from when they originally planned on having it. I still don't see the Nationals talking about this latest development in Mandeville. This local news station that I have it on here, these guys did report on that, and they were in the process of reporting on that. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to go back to the live stream that you're watching right now. This is live, by the way, live coverage from a local affiliate in New Orleans. Let's go back there and grab their audio so we can listen to it also, and see if they bring that back up, that new development in the Mandeville area.
Obviously, there was hundreds, if not thousands, of people out there on Bourbon Street. It was
about 3 or 4 blocks off of Canal Street. So I don't see any of those bollards.
People who are safe now, but we're out there.
Our heart goes out, obviously, to those who lost loved ones, to the 10 or 12 people that we know died in this horrific act terrorism, for the 20 or 25 that are injured, that are in local hospitals. Our prayers, the thoughts go out to the survivors, and know that we will not let their deaths and or injuries go in vain. We will bring them to justice if there are others outside of the one that is now deceased, to make sure that we send a powerful message to others, to copycats or others that may be associated with this, not on our watch.
What does the state now look like for you and other state and local leaders?
We're going to be working around the clock to ascertain as many facts and information to get out of the way of
Local
law
leadership in
enforcement,
New
to allow
Orleans,
them
by
to
the
do
way,
their
they're
jobs,
absolutely
to
stupid.
identify if there are other people that may have been a part of this, to scour social media, to look for any other clues that may be out there. And for the public, if you saw something, say something. If you know something, please let local and federal authorities know.
Oh, shut
Also know
up.
this, the president was on live just a little while ago, ensuring that the full faith and credit of the federal government and all of its resources are here to protect the people of
We
Louisiana and New Orleans.
Well,
I do believe that the federal government's resources are there and involved in this. Let me just say that. I don't think it's to protect us, but I do believe him when he says that their resources are dedicated there.
What do you want to say to the people watching around the world who have their eyes on our city?
No one does security for major events better than New Orleans Police Department, our state police, and our surrounding law enforcement agents. We secure Super Bowl, Sugar Bowls, Final Fours, Mardi Gras, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and many, many events forever.
Didn't do it.
Unfortunately, one incident is too many. But my confidence in NOPD, my confidence in the FBI, my confidence in Homeland Security and all the surrounding
They all
sheriffs and
suck.
law enforcement agents is that no one does it better
Nope,
than we do.
that's not
and
true.
we will make sure that
They
every
suck.
resource that's humanly possible will be used to protect the citizens and residents alike.
Let me make this really clear, guys. This was an absolute failure by all those agencies that he just mentioned. Department of Homeland Security, FBI, local law enforcement, any state involvement. This was a complete failure on every single person's part there. There's no way, if these guys were that good at security, that a vehicle should have been able to drive onto Bourbon Street, a place where vehicles do not drive at night, and be able to drive through and kill 10 people so far and injure 30 something more people. This was an absolute failure. If there is an area, look at that small corridor. I want you to understand the gravity of this. This is Canal Street that you're looking at that goes left to right. What's going north and south there, that's Bourbon Street. That's heading down Bourbon Street. Look how small that corridor is right there. That's where that vehicle entered. How easy would that be to keep a vehicle from driving down there? You could have parked 2 police units right there on that corner and stopped even a freaking motorcycle from driving down there. But yet they let this pickup truck pass. That is a failure on every level of security. There's no way that should be allowed to happen. Now, I will tell you this is many times, hundreds of times probably, that I've been to Bourbon Street over the years. Because again, those of you that don't know, I live right here in Louisiana. Any vehicle could have driven down here. They are horrible at security in New Orleans. Horrible. This could have happened 20 years ago. There has always been the ability, and I've said this while I'm walking on there. Well, this would be easy if somebody want to wipe up a bunch of people here, because the people are going to move slow. The reaction time is going to be less because half the people, well, not even half, probably 90% of the people are drunk that are walking down Bourbon Street. 10 killed? Are you kidding me? That's only because he didn't get very far. Had he not run into that man lift, you would be looking at 50 to 100 people killed. This is not the party part of Bourbon Street, by the way, guys. The area of Bourbon Street that this guy was on, if you look at Canal Street right up there, again, they just took the sign away, but when they go back to that same spot and you see Canal Street, this is looking at it from the opposite direction of what that other, and I'll do this in another video so you guys can better understand. This guy only made it 3, maybe 4 blocks off of Canal, which is a main thoroughway through the New Orleans area. One of the main hotels that I've always stayed at is right there. There's a Walgreens right there on the corner. There's a whole bunch of stuff right there. The aquarium is right down towards the river, right at the end of Canal. There's a lot of stuff right there. A lot goes on right there. But when it comes to Bourbon Street, it bottlenecks down to a very narrow road that goes through there. Where he came through and hit these people is where more of the restaurants are. Again, oh gosh, Redfish Cafe is right there. Excellent seafood. There's a whole lot of areas. Let me see if I can find the map. I'm sitting here trying to describe something to you guys, and I'm going to see if I can find the map of that area on Google Maps so you can better understand what I'm talking about. But this area, where he was, is not where the tourists are. It's he hadn't made it there yet. There would be hundreds of people if he had not run into that man lift. Let's see, Bourbon Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. All right, let me take you there real quick. Unmarked units drive out of here, headed away from downtown. I'm going to get the street view. Actually, you know what? Let me get off a street view real quick. Very quickly in an instant, they were here, kind of all up and down Poydras and this side street. So you can better well, no, you can probably see it from here. This is we're on Iberville here. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to take you. All right, let me get back over here. All throughout the city, the French Quarter. Where is Canal? There it is. Again, a lot of questions left unanswered. All right, let's go to Canal and Bourbon. At 1 o'clock, right there. All right, here we go. I wish I could keep that audio on while we're doing this, but I want to take you real quick to where, let's see, this is our. Let me grab my other affiliate. That's 4 that I'm looking at. Where's my map? Stand by 1 second, guys. I'm gonna show you guys where we're talking about. This might make a little bit more sense when I describe the ease of this person getting in there. Okay, so make sure you guys can see that. Okay, we're looking at Google Maps right now. This is what I was describing earlier. This is Canal Street. You see how we've got, well, if I can get that out of the way too. There's just too much garbage on this screen. So now it took me off of it. Where's Canal again? Canal and Bourbon right there. Okay. If you notice, you've got all of this area right here where you can see the streetcars go in the middle. That's where the streetcars drive right down the center of Canal. You see a bunch of hotels on either side of it. Let's see, there's an old one that I've always stayed at there. But you can see Bourbon Street goes like in both directions. But this direction that we're looking at right there, there's nothing down there. This is the area of Bourbon Street where everybody goes. Now I want you to see this real quick. So you see that Walgreens right there on the corner. This is where Bourbon Street bottlenecks down and goes straight down to where it's essentially a 1-lane road. And you can see the Bollard right here. See those bollards? Those right there, as you can see, and those are new right there. You can tell those are new. Let me see if I can get a little closer to those. Yeah, see those are, I've not seen those before. I can't really tell. Yeah, it's hard for me to tell on those. There are some that go down into the street. I don't see how those would do that. Either way, you can block this street off is what I'm saying. And I want to show you why that's important, that we say that this was a failure. Okay, this narrow area right here, you've got street posts or light posts to the right. You've got a building on both sides. And then as you go down here, the street narrows down and you can see where people have been driving between those bollards. I think those bollards right there, there's got to be a way that they can actually go across the street because this road is blocked off. This is where this guy entered, right? He entered this area. Why? No. Okay, I see why it's doing that. Hustler. So there's a strip joint right there too. So right in this area that we're looking at is roughly where this guy went through. Crystal Burger's right there. Again, there's a Redfish Grills right up here on the left. Again, some very good food. It's likely one of these right here, Hard Rock. So as you can see, although this is part of Bourbon Street, this is not the crazy part of Bourbon Street. This is when you enter Bourbon Street, there's in this area right here, it's got restaurants. And of course you saw the Hustler House there. But this is not where it gets wild yet. You get further down here past the Hard Rock Cafe and it starts to get a little bit nutty. This is where you're going to see a lot more of the partying further down that street than where we are now. I believe based on the pictures they were showing, let's go back and look. Yeah, this looks like the block, the area between Hard Rock Cafe and over there on Canal Street up ahead where this guy hit those people. So I believe he probably only made it this far. And I think this is, this is Iberville right here. He probably only made it too close to Iberville and then hit that man lift that he hit. Again, we're probably talking, well, technically it's one city block. But I can't imagine he got any further than that. Now, as you see, they block off in many areas. They don't even have bollards to block off the street. They'll put cones up. So these cars that are coming crossways on these one-way streets, these cars will know, of course, the locals will already know, but that you can't drive down Bourbon. So to my right here, they will actually put up in this area, they'll put up cones to keep drivers from being able to drive down Bourbon. Now, this is where Bourbon is going to start getting a little bit crazier at night. So, and the reason I'm showing you all this, I mean, the deeper you go into it, the deeper you go down here, the more there's a Hustler Club right there. Let's see. You've got the Cat's Meow right down here. I assume it's still there. I can't imagine it ever goes away, as busy as that place is. So all this gets crazy, crazy, crazy. Like if this were nighttime, this would be absolutely insane how crazy this area would be. The guy never made it this far. And again, we're looking at those bollards right there. It looks like they slide. Can you see? Oh, I wish I could show you that better. It looks like the ones in front without the ball on top. You see the bollards there, or the one that has the ball on top, and then you have the other one that's a flat top. The flat top ones look like they stay where they are, which would make sense because it still allows for one-way traffic to enter through there. But it appears that the bollards that have the balls on top slide to the center, which would block off the street completely. So there's no way you would be able to drive down this street normally. Now, I'm curious if those bollards were still in place, because again, this is Google Maps. We're going to go back towards the area real quick where the actual terrorist attack took place. And I want to see if they have bollards down there. Let's see, guys. I don't see any bollards here. So not in this area. This is further down. Let's go straight to Canal Place and see if that same bollard system is in place where that thing could have slid. Okay, this is Canal, not Canal Place, Canal Street. Yep, that's what it is. And I'm sorry if those of you, I'm not looking at the comments. If those of you guys have figured this out already, I apologize that I'm just now noticing it. But it looks like the bollard that is, the two bollards that are further away from us, one has a ball on top, the one on the right does not. It looks like those are permanent, like those stay in place. But the ones behind it that are closer to us, the one on the left and the right that are closer to us, it appears they slide upon some kind of a little rail system right there to completely block the street off. So two questions I would have. One would be, were those bollards closed last night when this guy came? Second question would be, were those bollards even there? Because they are talking about how bollards were being replaced in preparation for the Super Bowl. It's possible there were no bollards there, and this was, quote, under construction. Again, this is Google Maps that we're looking at. This is not from news or anything like that. So this is an older picture. This is not necessarily current. But as you could see, the person still could have driven up on the sidewalk, which obviously, if he's looking to kill as many people as possible, that may have been his preferred area of driving. As you can see further down to Canal, where you enter Bourbon Street from Canal, there's nothing to stop you. This thing right here, whatever you want to call it, that is a barricade that would lift up. But that barricade, I don't ever in my lifetime remember seeing that barricade lifted up to block off Bourbon Street. I've never seen it lifted up, ever. So my guess is that was open. The guy could have driven through that barricade, got up on the sidewalk, and driven around those bollards. Once he got around the bollards, driven back into the center of the street and then kept going. In other words, those street lights to the left and the right, or those posts, that's more than likely posts to hold the canopies up above it. Yeah. He wouldn't have had to maneuver that. So he could have driven easily up on the sidewalk around those bollards if they were in fact in place, and then driven back down onto the street to continue on with his terrorist attack. So just something I wanted to show you guys so you get a better feel for what I'm talking about when I describe the area of Bourbon Street where this guy was. This area right here is very easy to block off. They did not block it off. This is a super narrow, super narrow entrance. Just so you know, and I know I'm repeating myself, but I want you guys to understand, this area of Canal Street is wide open, right? Always has been and always will be, just wide open, very heavily trafficked. I can guarantee you that all 4 lanes, 5 lanes of traffic, 6 lanes of traffic, whatever it is, were jam-packed, probably not at 3 a.m. in the morning, but nevertheless, jam-packed during that whole celebration. This is where the guy entered Bourbon Street, and it bottlenecks really, really fast down to this. So this area can very easily be defended if these guys were prepared. Local law enforcement, FBI, if FBI was even involved in this, of course, if they were, they would have screwed it up anyway. But local law enforcement is known for being inept. They just are. They're really, really idiots. Sometimes they even oppose the state police coming in to help out with security on Bourbon Street because they are so inept, and they get their feelings hurt whenever state law enforcement is forced to go in there to help them out because the local law enforcement is so crappy. And a lot of that has to do with the leadership. The mayor and the police chief are absolute idiots in New Orleans. So no surprise that this happened. To me, at least, it's not. I don't think that these people are capable of managing something like this. I think now you're going to see a massive reaction to what happened, but it's going to be too little too late, obviously. Let's go back to this. This is a local affiliate who's done a really good job. They've stayed live throughout this entire thing. So I want to see, let's pull their audio back in here and see what they're talking about. This looks like a statement from either the Pelicans, the Pelicans, I believe.
Overnight, Councilman Thomas saying that he knows some of the victims. He's heard from some of their families, and that's where we are right now at 11:33 with those 35 people at least who are being treated in area hospitals right now. Wondering how they're doing, their road to recovery, but also where we stand as a community in getting these questions answered about safety and security, but also the road ahead as far as that emotional recovery goes.
Of course, we know that this was done intentionally. Mm-hmm. It was done with purpose, and we are getting the identity of the suspect, which we can report according to our partners at NOLA.com as a 42-year-old man named Shamsuddin Jabbar. And if I'm pronouncing that first name correctly, spelled SHAMSUDDINJABBAR.
A jihadist.
42-year-old, as you heard the council president earlier saying, not believed to be a local of New Orleans, wearing full military tactical gear whenever he committed this heinous terrorist act.
Yeah, NOLA.com reporting law enforcement.
There you go, guys.
On the release of that name, we are working to learn more. Again, there will be a media briefing at 1 p.m. over at New Orleans Police Headquarters downtown.
Thanks, Bob.
Across the street from the Superdome, our Alyssa Curtis reporting there. Governor Jeff Landry also set to join.
Interesting, right?
Patrick Mayor LaToya
Who could have guessed this?
And other officials.
Looks like Trump was right. Guess they have to.
Batteries, Ryan, if you.
We'll get to Lily in just a moment. You know, a little bit earlier, they were looking into whether this was directly tied to any type of terrorist organization. And NOLA.com is reporting now that the source that was had given the name that there was an ISIS flag on the back of that truck that the suspect had with him.
Yeah, a lot of conversation about that truck. We showed you the picture of
Did we
the
just
truck
call
from
it,
Bourbon
guys?
Street, and you could see the back end of
We
that
literally called it.
there. And on the back end, you saw what appeared to be like PVC piping and a gray or black, what we believe to be a flag there wrapped around, but you couldn't see what was on the back.
Because they covered it up.
Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungasser even brought that up when we spoke to him at around
See, they
7
covered
o'clock.
this flag up.
Here is that picture right now, and what we're talking about. Mike brought this to our attention when we first saw.
Why
these
would they
pictures.
do that?
You see the flagpole there in the center.
We
drawing
knew
your
what it
attention
was.
to where that Texas license plate is. That's the flag in question.
Yes.
So back on the right-hand side, you can see kind of the black material up there on the top of that PVC pipe is what we're talking about when we're talking about the flag. All right, we're going to go continue our coverage with Lily Cummings, who has been at UMC all day. She still joins us there.
This is the hospital where
course,
most
that's
of the
where
people
most
are.
of the victims were taken after this tragedy. Hey there, Lily.
Excuse us for a second. We're just regrouping there. We'll get to Lily in a second, but Lily
To
has been
UMC.
reporting from. There she is.
Go ahead, Lily.
Yes, Brandon and Mike, I did want to bring you an update here from UMC. The hospital is asking families of victims to please go to the UMC Conference Center on the first floor. That's across from Tower 2, which is the midpoint of the hospital. That is a reunification location for victims' families. Now, they posted that to Twitter not too long ago, and I just wanted to make sure that you all or anyone watching knew that, because of course, as you all mentioned, the majority of the victims were brought here to UMC, 26
Sorry about that.
of the 35, and we know the others were taken to Truro, Ochsner Baptist.
Okay, quick update, guys. So, and thank you, Bob, for typing the name out for me, by the way. We're talking about a 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar. Can't really tell if that's Italian, maybe French, German, Hispanic, maybe. It's hard to tell with that kind of name because it's such a common name, like a John Smith or something like that. But let's just say that he had an affiliation with jihadists. We've been talking about this all morning long. In fact, somebody who I always admire and how he covers things like this is Mike with Mr. Guns and Gear. Mike's just so good at this kind of stuff. And I follow a lot of his stuff. And believe it or not, I was digging through all this morning, and I had seen the pickup truck with the PVC pipe, the picture of the pickup truck with the PVC pipe, and the black flag. That the black flag looked like it had bungee cord or tether or something wrapped around it, but you could tell it was a flag. I mean, that's the only thing you put when you do something like that. I mean, the PVC is not going to support anything else except a flag waving in the wind. And you really wondered why that was like that. And I at first I was like, well, this, the only black flags that I remember seeing are the ones that are completely black with the Arabic lettering on it for ISIS. But wasn't thinking a whole lot about it either, because I'm like, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe there's something in the farming industry or something, and I just don't know what that is. Well, then I saw Mike with Mr. Guns and Gear had posted the same thing with a big arrow pointing at the bundled up flag. And I'm like, okay, well, somebody else is seeing this besides just me. It's not just me overreacting. And of course, it makes you wonder, why would they bundle that flag up and hide it from the general public and the pictures that are going to be taken, unless they're trying to hide something? Because what harm does it do? Oh, we jumped to the correct conclusion sooner than you did, right? I mean, that's why the American people and the public don't trust these federal agencies, because they think that we're too stupid or not able to process facts properly, and that we might get our feelings hurt or something bad might happen because we're too dumb to process the kind of information that they are prepared for and that they're trained for processing. So they hide this stuff. There's no reason I can believe for 1 minute that this jihadi guy, if he is in fact a jihadist, bundled his own flag up after going through the trouble to mount it on a trailer hitch and put it up there on the PVC pipe. Now he hit it. You know, I guess there's an outside chance that he didn't want anybody to see his flag on the way to his murder spree and forgot to unfurl it. But I don't think that's the case. I do think somebody else covered that up, which is, again, going back to the FBI, we're not capable of processing the information that their highly trained people are. So they do that for our own benefit. I'd like to see them unfurl the flag now. I think that's very important that it's be seen now. Now, another question that I have is, granted, this area of Bourbon Street, as I showed you guys, if some of you guys are new to the live stream right now, go back a few minutes ago. I showed the Google Maps layout of Canal Street going into Bourbon Street. I'm very familiar with the area, having lived down here and worked down there before. I know the area very well. In fact, I know some of the places. If you look in the picture right there, there's a Redfish Cafe that has excellent seafood within that block where the guy on the right's walking. I showed you the proximity of where this guy would have entered. This was an absolute failure. I do not think that this was coordinated and planned. I think it was just simply a failure at the local level to prepare for this. They have gotten by for decades by treating the New Orleans area on Bourbon Street more specifically, instead of them trying to put things up that keep somebody from driving down Bourbon, they really just put barricades up. I mean, essentially, it's what they are. They're tougher types of barricades that you could easily defeat. It's like they're less worried about somebody doing what happened here and more worried about just keeping the average everyday guy from accidentally driving down the street. You follow what I'm saying? Like the Bollards the Bollard system that they have up there is more of a deterrent. It ain't going to stop you. It's just to deter you in case some drunk or some idiot accidentally turns down Bourbon Street while those bollards are up, and intended to keep people from driving, but it's being walked on at that time. If you go through New Orleans during normal times when there's not holiday season or not football games in town, those bollards are down or out of the way, and you can drive through Bourbon Street. You can drive down Bourbon Street during the day. It's a normal thing. It's just in the evenings and for special occasions that they close it completely down. So the normal types of system that they have in place to keep people from driving down is not to terrorism. It's to deter the locals, or I guess you should say a non-local, from accidentally driving down there. It ain't stopping anybody if somebody's hell-bent on driving through there. And that's why they're saying that the local police department are already running for cover on this, saying that, oh, we were in the process of putting new bollards up. Bull crap. That's bull crap. If you are doing some kind of security, if you're exchanging the security detail, let's just use President, oh God, I can't even call him that. Let's just say Joe Biden. Okay, if you have a change in detail for his Secret Service, do you think that one guy leaves and 3 hours later the next guy shows up? No, there's an overlap. Anytime you have security, and you guys all know this is common sense. Anytime you have security concerns, whether they're founded or not, you overlap your security. You don't leave a hole in the security because your excuse is that we're changing something. No, you overlap it. So you would have the new bollards or something like a concrete barrier in place if you took security seriously. If these people had taken security seriously, how easy would it have been for them to take those big concrete long barriers and set two of them up right there at the front of Bourbon Street in front of the bollards that they were changing out to prevent somebody from driving down that street? They didn't do it because it's never been a concern of theirs. This was not some chink in the armor. This is something that could have happened 20 years ago, easily 30 years ago. They don't prevent cars from driving down there. They just hint that they don't want you driving down there. There's nothing to stop you from driving down there. That's why this guy got through. The local law enforcement, they are jumping through hoops right now because this was an accident waiting to happen and could have happened for so long. And now that it finally happened, they're saying, oh, we were changing the bollards out. Bull crap. Again, I go back to security. You have overlaps anytime there is a change in whatever your preventive thing is that you're trying to keep somebody from coming. If they truly, if the main primary bollards were down that could have blocked traffic from going down this street, then you should have had something else while those were being changed out and not say, oh, we left the street wide open because we're changing out the security mechanism. Really? So if a bank is changing out their security system, there's a breach at some point in time where anybody could just walk into the vault and grab whatever they want? No. Again, there is an overlap. These people are covering for their own inadequacies. They are stupid. The leadership in New Orleans, Latoya the Destroyer, she is an absolute idiot. The people of New Orleans are idiots because they keep voting her back in. And then the police chief is an absolute idiot. So, yeah, interesting. Pin King, and thank you, by the way, Pin King. Where is that at? Pin King says Superdome is on lockdown for security sweeps. That doesn't surprise me. I will say this. The Superdome, that's private security. It ain't it ain't like these people supposedly blocking Bourbon Street. I have way more confidence that nothing will happen at the Superdome than I do with nothing happening on Bourbon Street, because those people take it serious. And I promise you, there are multiple layers of security inside the Superdome in preparation for the Sugar Bowl tonight. And there ain't a rat that's going to sneak into a crack in the Superdome today without somebody frisking that rat and finding out where that rat lives. They may be going through the rosters of all the ticket holders right now just to look at them and see who all is going to this game. So yeah, this is great information, Pin King, and I appreciate you sharing that. But yeah, there ain't nobody getting into the Superdome. That's not going to be the problem tonight. If you're going to have a problem at the Superdome tonight, it's going to be somebody doing just what this guy did on Bourbon Street and driving into the entrance areas and the parking lot areas of the Superdome. That's the only way you're going to see any kind of a security breach tonight. Again, not worried about anything happening inside the Superdome. They will definitely not postpone this game. They certainly will not cancel it. Money talks, and there's way too much money involved for them to do anything different than what they are going to do tonight, which is going to be to play this game. Operator Odin says, Trump International in Vegas just had an explosion. I had not heard that. Interesting there as well. You know, I will say this. If we have, if we see a ramp up in what's going, look, are these guys talking about that now? That's the entrance of Bourbon Street to the far right over there by that Walgreens. If we have a ramp up of violence leading up to January 20th when Trump takes over, you have to wonder what's going on. And who's really responsible for it, because just like a video I put out a couple of days ago, they're already talking about and floating these threats, potential threats of bird flu now, and the possibility that we need to be doing testing, and that the Biden administration already bought 5 million vaccines for the bird flu. So they're trying to push this fear, this rhetoric, and this makes it real now. This makes it real whenever you have people who have actually perished in a terrorist attack like this. This is absolutely, without a doubt, blood on the Biden administration's hands. Mayorkas, all those guys, because they have let these people come and go. Trump was right when he said they are not sending their best and brightest. Well, obviously, they're sending some of their people who managed to thwart supposedly our best and brightest. And I say that with an obscene amount of sarcasm in my voice. So you basically got some Yahoo that crosses the border in a Texas registered vehicle, makes its way all the way over to New Orleans, and somehow or another outsmarts the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and local law enforcement to go kill 10 people and injure 30 something more. Interesting. So yeah, I was looking for the update and one of you guys posted it. Again, thank you guys so much for this. Trump Tower, LV, 2 bangs, then Cybertruck explodes. So they're saying it's somebody said it's in the comment section. If you guys are not already following the comment section, read the comment section. There's a lot of really good information going on in the comment section. I can't keep up with it. But a lot of good information. Somebody said that there wasn't an explosion at the actual Trump Tower, that it was a Cybertruck, and now Dorzak is saying Trump Tower, 2 bangs, then Cybertruck explode. So not sure what's going on there, but something is happening at Trump Tower in Vegas right now, which, by the way, SHOT Show will be in a couple of weeks over there, and that's right by there. But yeah, we got we have what do they call them? What's the cushy name for an undocumented migrant is apparently the terrorist that carried out this. You got that? An undocumented migrant. Is it possible to be an undocumented terrorist? I guess it is. I guess most terrorists would be undocumented. But this was an undocumented migrant. No, seeking asylum, an undocumented terrorist seeking asylum in the United States. Yeah. Thank you, WB. I appreciate the donation to the channel. I appreciate that so very much. Let's see. I wonder, and I'm curious about this. You have to wonder this. This is a question that we may find out. Who knows? With the FBI doing the investigating, I don't know. But I wonder if this person was a citizen of the United States. I mean, they had a Texas truck. That doesn't mean anything because obviously illegal immigrants or illegal aliens are treated as if they're American citizens. But I'm curious if that person, even though he likely came here illegally, if he was already an American citizen or getting the benefits of American citizens, like benefits, welfare type benefits, housing, things of that nature, or if this person just came in and drove straight there. Makes you wonder where he got the truck from, if he was not an American citizen, where the truck came from. Was it stolen? There's a whole lot of questions out there that we don't have the answers for. Again, I want to remind everybody, the reason why I put this stream on at 11 o'clock was because there was supposed to be a news conference at 11 a.m. this morning, not quite an hour ago, 53 minutes ago. So I was going to cover the news conference. Now it appears they've pushed the news conference back to 1 p.m., which is going to be an hour from now. That's whenever they will. Sources I missed it. 4 to 5 other. Man, I want to say that was suspects.
Yeah, said he just saw bodies just there in the street. He likened it to his time spent as a military veteran. We're going to check in with
so my point is, if they push this press conference back, they also had a report that this news channel that we have on right here was showing. Here we go. This is it right here.
Seems to develop over here. We have developing scene of federal and local law enforcement
this is live
gathering near a home that we believe is an Airbnb, according to our partners at NOLA.com. And according to our partners at NOLA.com, an alleged fire broke out this morning, which forced many residents in the St. Roch neighborhood to be evacuated this morning. We are still working to get confirmation from that from local investigators as well as federal investigators here on scene. Again, this is a scene that has expanded from the terrorist attack that took place in the French Quarter and Bourbon Street earlier this morning. And now you see investigators are surrounding a home believed to be an Airbnb, according to, again, our partners at NOLA.com. And it is believed to be connected to the suspect involved in that terrorist attack, who was shot and killed by police following plowing a vehicle into a crowd of people in the French Quarter. We're still working to gather more information. We're also told that a bomb squad is in the area as well. That's according to our partners, but we are again waiting to get more confirmation. This is the closest that we can get. We are at the corner of Mandeville and Murray, and the investigators are about a block ahead, as you can see, but we can go no further than the yellow tape that is sitting right in front of us. Reporting live from the St. Rock neighborhood of Winston
Interesting,
Reed,
man.
WWL, Louisiana.
Winston, thank you for that. We do now want to get live to a phone conversation. City Councilwoman Leslie Harris joining us by phone.
Yeah, we're going to pass.
Councilwoman,
The
thank
city
you for being
council
with us. When
people are
did you
stupid
become-
over there, completely stupid. I don't even want to hear this lady talking. They're inept, stupid, very unintelligent people. But what you just saw there, I think, is an interesting development. And I don't see the nationals talking about it at all. I only see it on this local affiliate. Maybe somebody else is talking about it. But essentially what they're talking about is after everything that went down this morning on Bourbon Street, then there was this fire in Mandeville area. And as I mentioned earlier, Mandeville is essentially a suburb of New Orleans. Any decent people like you and I who would live in that area, which I never would, but anybody who's a decent person who would, you're usually going to live in that Kenner or Mandeville area or some of the areas surrounding that area where there's much lower crime and better people who live there. So, but that's pretty much, you're still essentially a part of New Orleans. So this house caught fire this morning, or there was a fire in the house. And that happened well after, like, sounds like a couple of hours after the actual terrorist attack. And they are going so far as to say that it is tied to, it's an Airbnb, by the way. And one of the viewers on here mentioned that it was likely an Airbnb earlier, and you were right. I appreciate that information, but they are confirming that it was an Airbnb and that's where the fire was, and that it's potentially tied to it. They would not say that it was potentially tied to it if there wasn't some reason to believe that. I mean, why would you draw that conclusion in an area as big as New Orleans? It's so spread out. So, I mean, you would normally just not make that connection naturally unless there was something there. So very, very interesting to hear about that's going on. I'm very curious. The reason why it's so interesting, it's because unless this guy was so sophisticated that he had some kind of timer on some kind of bomb or something at the Airbnb that went off later on, this sounds like there's another person involved, like somebody, an accomplice may have been at the place, because obviously the terrorist was shot and killed at the terrorist attack, the site of the terrorist attack on Bourbon Street. So if this place in Mandeville caught fire a little later after the person perished, either it was something remote or timed or somebody was there. So really, really interesting to me that that's come up. Super interesting to me that that's come up. Tactile Shrimp, man, I appreciate you, brother. You know, you guys don't have to make donations. I don't do this. I know the economy's crap. I don't do these types of live streams because I'm asking for your money. Make no mistake, I'm very grateful when you guys do help the channel out. Yes, I'm very much appreciative of that, but I hope you guys don't think that I do this because I'm expecting that. But when you do that, it means a lot to me, because I know you could do other things with your money and you choose to send some of it to me. And in that case, I'm very grateful for that. But please don't think that I'm expecting of that. Again, it hits me right here when you guys do that. That's your acts of kindness, but certainly don't think that I'm expecting that. Very appreciative of it. So yeah, lots of weird stuff happening right now. Some things that just not, excuse me, aren't adding up. I don't think, yeah, she's not really talking about much anything. Let me see what she's saying. I don't think this is anything new.
Strong law enforcement presence here on scene. We still see.
And this is the most volume I can get out of this. By the way, I can't increase their volume anymore.
Of Bourbon, where it does meet Canal, we have shifted our spots just a little bit, and we were able to peer down just a bit into and along Bourbon Street. And still, again, a very heavy law enforcement presence on this stretch of Bourbon Street. We've also been seeing a lot of movement with the Orleans Parish Coroner's vans making their way onto and out of Bourbon Street. Again, 10 people were killed when that man plowed into a crowd on Bourbon Street, killing those 10 people and injuring about 35, 36 other people, including 2 officers that were injured when shots rang out, when that person ran through the crowd. And of course, officers shot at the man when that person also pulled out a gun. So a lot of different details that are coming out of this, and still information that is actively coming out of this this incident that happened earlier this morning, again just after 3:15 in the morning. I've been speaking to witnesses all throughout the morning, and the first woman that I spoke to says that she was actually on Bourbon Street and was just sitting along the side near the CVS. I just saw her sitting there, and I just had to talk to her. Something told me that something had happened to her just by the way she looked. You could tell that she was shaken up, clearly shaken, and she was literally within feet of that car that ran into the crowd. She told me that it was literally by the grace of God, she says, that she was able to escape and run with her life. Another man that I spoke to, who was actually in the Royal Sonesta, which is actually a hotel on Bourbon Street, he said he was inside. He heard some popping and banging that he initially thought was fireworks because, of course, I mean, it is New Year's, and he quickly realized that it was not that. It was, in fact, gunshots. Ran outside and, of course, did see quite a few people laying on the ground. He did see some people who were deceased, and, of course, he jumped into action, being a military veteran, to try to help those people who were injured after this horrific attack. He says that, unfortunately, some people just did not make it out and off of this street alive. Others, of course, were able to make their way to the hospital, where they are continued to be treated here at hospitals across our area right now. That man also described the scene. He said he felt like he was back in Iraq. So that just goes to show you the true scope and the gravity of what people saw out here. I mean, you heard Chief Ann Kirkpatrick say that this individual absolutely intended to cause harm. He intended to kill people. He intended to just disrupt the peace and just cause carnage here, in the words of Chief Ann Kirkpatrick. And I would say he did just that. Of course, we are still waiting to hear more from law enforcement. Again, that latest update will be coming in at 1 o'clock. They've since pushed that back. Governor Jeff Landry will be joining Mayor LaToya Cantrell.
Okay, so according to what she just said, it sounds like they pushed back the press conference even more. I can assure you that a lot of that has a lot to do with what's going on in Mandeville right now with this house fire. Something's going down, and they're trying to figure out what the heck is going on. You see those barriers right there in front and the little ones off to the right over there? That's the extent of the barriers to block Bourbon Street off. These people are acting like they have this massive system in place that will keep vehicles from going down there. The type of system they have is simply a deterrent for somebody accidentally turning onto the street. It's not meant to stop vehicles from driving down the street. I'd really like to, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to go back real quick. We're going to come back to this live stream from these people in a second, but I want to show again what we talked about earlier so people understand how New Orleans and how it's set up, and that these people are lying to you about the they're lying to you about this place being secure. New Orleans is not secure. Again, you'll find me, those of you that have been on the live stream for a little while will find me repeating a little bit, but I just want the new people on here to understand what I'm talking about. If you look right here, this is Canal Street in New Orleans. This is a very popular area, but this is not, you're not finding people hanging out. They're going to walk down this street and all that, but they're walking to go somewhere. This is not like Bourbon Street where you go to Bourbon Street to party. You're going to find these store shops and all that pretty busy during the day. And actually there's a Popeye's fried chicken. Is it right here? Where is it? There's a Popeye's fried chicken somewhere right down here. That gets kind of popular too. Maybe it's on that corner over there. Anyway, this area is a popular area, but it's not like a Bourbon Street, right? In fact, you can kind of tell here, these people are all walking to Bourbon Street. So this is where the guy came to. He was in this area right here on the Canal Street area. made his way to this entryway going into Bourbon Street. All right. Now you see how Bourbon Street bottlenecks down. You've got the posts on the right-hand side that are supporting the balcony above that. And then on the left-hand side, you have these little cheap looking, those are pedestrian barriers. That's just to keep a pedestrian from walking somewhere. If you notice the white box on the left and the right, and then that white metal that goes across there, that's essentially one of those barriers that will rise up to block a car from driving down Bourbon Street. Now, if that were used properly, that would be a pretty good deterrent. But in all my times of being in New Orleans, I've never seen that raised up. Even whenever there was a celebration or something big going on, that was never raised up. Maybe they raised it up during Mardi Gras, but I doubt it, because even though they're wanting to keep people off of here, there are parades that pass through here. So these areas are usually still drivable right here in these areas. And if you look to the left-hand side, if a person, and this may have been what happened, if for some reason that white barrier was up, which I don't think that it was, but if it was up, you could easily drive to the left. You could run over or move that little pedestrian barrier and drive up onto the sidewalk. Did this person care about driving on a sidewalk? No, he was there to kill people. So if people were on the sidewalk, better for him. But he could have driven around this barrier if it were in fact up. Again, I doubt that it was. Nobody has said it was up, so I do believe it was down. Then when you get a little bit closer over here, you've heard them talk about changing the bollards out. The bollards are those post things that you see poking up from the street. Those, you usually see them at a 7-Eleven in front of the front door or whatever, to keep people from driving into the building itself. Well, obviously, you see those at a lot of different places for security reasons, in front of banks and restaurants and things like that. Well, in this case, these, after looking at them a little bit better, appear that you can move them. The two that are further away from us, you have the two on the left and the two on the right. The two that are further away from us look to be they're in position. They're not going anywhere. Where the two closer to us on the left and the right, you see the little angled lines that go inward. It appears that they're on a track and they slide inward, more than likely lining up to where all four of those kind of block the street off. Well, as you can see in this picture, they're out of the way. Well, every time I have been to Bourbon Street, which is many, many, many times, I used to work in the New Orleans area, I have never seen those bollards closed, ever. I've seen them, some older ones. These are new models of bollards that I see right here. The other ones used to come, they were operated a little bit differently than these. So even if these bollards were up, even if these center ones were moved to the center over here, the person could have easily driven through this area where it bottlenecks, driven up on the sidewalk and gotten around those bollards. Again, assuming they were closed, I doubt they were, then driven around here, and in order to avoid these posts holding the balcony up over here, it had plenty of room to drive back down on the street. This area that you see right in front of us, all down this area, roughly is the area that this person drove. And based on the pictures that I've seen in the different businesses, he made his way about this far. It looks like Iberville right here. This is Iberville in the corner where you have Hard Rock Cafe. This is where, if you're familiar with the New Orleans Bourbon Street area, the Hard Rock Cafe, kind of right past the Hard Rock, is where Bourbon Street starts to get a little wild. This first block that we're looking at is not a wild block. Again, this is Iberville that's crossing right here. Let's look back to Canal. So the guy entered Bourbon Street from Canal Street, which is where we just came from, heading in our direction that we're looking right here. Just like this car is heading in this direction, that little Nissan in the center, that's the direction that pickup truck was coming. And if I look at most of the pictures that I've seen of this area, it looks to be in this block is as far as he got. Like, he didn't get farther than this. So I don't think he made it past Iberville. If he made it past Iberville and continued down Bourbon Street, he didn't make it very far. Because when you look at the pictures, this is about, you can actually see in some of the pictures, which, yeah, you can see it here. There's a sign in the center. If you look, there's a street sign in the center of Bourbon Street at the end of the block further down. If you look way past all these cars and all these people. At the end down there, you kind of see, and you can't read it, of course, from this distance, but that says Canal Street. That's the picture when you look at a lot of the area where you see the truck in the pictures after the terrorism attack. You're going to see that Canal Street sign sitting up there. And in their pictures, you can read Canal Street. You just can't read it in what I'm showing you right here. But that's the same sign. And it does say that is Canal Street, by the way. So I believe this is the only block that this guy made it into. Now, why is that important? Most of what you see here, this is not the party area of Bourbon Street. These are restaurants. You got the Redfish Cafe somewhere on the right-hand side up there. Really good seafood. Hard Rock Cafe right here. A lot of these are restaurants. So when you enter Bourbon Street from Canal, you're not in the crazy part yet. So even if people are walking down the street, like if this is, you see the cars driving here now. During the day, the cars can drive down Bourbon Street. At night, and I know last night, you could not drive. Like it was dedicated just for people. They probably had cones, and those pedestrian barriers were at the end of Canal to keep people from driving. But again, that's more of a deterrent. That's like putting a do not enter sign up, or, I mean, let's be real about it. It's like putting a gun-free zone sign up. It's just a deterrent. It's not a preventive. It's just something telling you, hey, don't drive down here. But it's not going to stop people from driving, those pedestrian barriers. So if this person had managed to get past, he ran into what looked to be a man lift, and that's what ultimately stopped the vehicle. Had he been able to keep going this way down Bourbon Street, again, these Google Maps pictures are not indicative of what this would look like at night. These streets would be jam-packed. And you see the bollards over here to the left and right also. Those, again, as you can see, they're out of the way. You can drive between them. They likely were not even up. And had they been up, the guy could have driven to the left or the right and around that fire hydrant or whatever. I mean, those sidewalks are a good 10-foot wide sidewalk. So if the guy had been able to get past Iberville, which is the street right back here, had he been able to get past there, which he did not, it appears, he would have been in hog heaven, because these streets here from Iberville on would have been extremely packed to the gills, because you're entering into the party area now. The balconies are usually packed. The sidewalks are packed. The middle of the street are packed. All this area is wild in here. And you see there's still restaurants on the side. So this is not the crazy part yet. But you see the Big Easy right there. A lot of people are going to stop and get those big, tall drinks right there. This is where you're starting to get, people are getting tuned up. Once you get past here, it's insane. I mean, this is where, I mean, you see the Hustler Club off to the left right there. This area gets absolutely insane at nighttime, all in this area. And by the grace of God, this guy was not able to get down here into this area. So this could have been a hell of a lot worse. Local law enforcement, local security, they're very lucky that this did not turn out much worse than what it did. They're very lucky. We should be talking about something a lot worse that happened, but simply because somebody, whether it was to put it in the way or by accident, somebody chose to put, see, this is where I was telling you. You can see that Canal Street sign, that blue sign kind of in the center of the street, that says Canal Street. This is that block that I just showed you. So this is how far the guy got. Barely a block onto Bourbon Street. This is not the crazy part of Bourbon Street. So they dodged a massive bullet right here. And again, whoever parked that man lift, they saved a lot of people, whether he did that on purpose to block the traffic or if it was left there for some work that was ongoing, whatever the reason was, it appears that the guy with the truck, the terrorist, could not get past the man lift and ultimately ran into that man lift, stopping what would have been an absolute disaster. We would likely be talking about hundreds of people dead this morning had that man lift not have been where it was, only a block off of Bourbon Street. This is insane how lucky this area got. And you know, local law enforcement right now, they are very, very happy because they know they dodged a massive bullet. by this guy only being able to get one block down Bourbon.
New Orleanians, we're tough. Right. We're not just resilient, and you're not going to stop our traditions.
I have to ask you, in the French Quarter, obviously we talked about IEDs potentially being found. Before I ask you that question, I want to switch on over to Sheriff Susan Hudson, who's giving us an update right now. Sheriff Hudson is here.
Is available right now. We also want folks to know that, because I've gotten had people reach out to me.
Oh, shut up. The local local leadership, quote unquote, they're really stupid. This is probably a city council member. They're very dumb. Mark brings up a good point. Reports say the Bollards are awaiting repairs, so we're not functional or in position, estimated to be repaired by the Super Bowl. That's what we talked about a little bit earlier. That is a massive failure. That's a massive failure. So you're going to tell me that you have hundreds of thousands of people, for sure tens of thousands of people, because the Superdome holds 60-something thousand people, and they're in town for the game. Plus, you had New Year's Eve last night. So you're going to tell me that you have a massive security need this weekend, but the Bollards were either not in place or weren't working, and that's your excuse for why this breach of security happened, because you did not foresee this, knowing this was going to happen, and this has been planned for decades. We know the Sugar Bowl is always going to be here this time of year, and we also know New Year's Eve is always going to be December 31st, right? This did not sneak up on anybody. So they made the decision to not have the Bollards in working position, and maybe not even in position, because they were preparing for the Super Bowl. That's not how security works. You always have overlaps in security. You don't stop. You don't pull your guy on duty, pull this guy and say, well, it's my time to go home. It's midnight. And the next guy doesn't come on until 3 o'clock. That doesn't work like that. You overlap. And even if the guy does get off at midnight, the other guy doesn't show up at 12:01. There's not even a 1 minute of breach in that security. You overlap it. One guy leaves or shows up before midnight, and the other guy leaves after his person has come to relieve him. That's an overlap for security. You never leave your security completely open. And I stated this earlier. If you don't have the other Bollards ready or in place now, then you have to know that this is a security breach. Why wouldn't you bring one of those? We see thousands of them along the interstate. Those concrete barriers that are lifted up by a cherry picker. Why wouldn't you get one of those and bring 2 of those and put them end to end where people can walk around or walk in between them at the beginning of Bourbon Street as you come off of Canal, instead of just leaving it open and going, sorry, we're working on those Bollards. My bad. No, that's not how security works. That's not true. That should never be an excuse. Oh, we didn't have anybody there. The security system at the bank was down because we're replacing it. So there was a week in there where anybody could walk in or out of the vault and steal anything. And that's my reason why somebody's robbed the bank, because we're changing security out. So not my fault. It's not my fault, right? I mean, we were in the process of changing out security. That's not an adequate excuse when it comes to security. You always overlap your damn security. So this is unbelievable. And I will tell you this. I've mentioned it earlier. Look, this was not an accident that this happened like this. That street's always open. Anybody who's been to Bourbon Street knows anytime somebody would want to drive around those little dinky ass barriers that they have on Bourbon Street, you could probably either drive through them or easily drive along the sidewalk and get around them. Those are not made for security reasons. They are simply there to tell you you can't drive down this street today, because normally you can drive down Bourbon Street. It's just like putting a sign up. You could put a plastic sign up and it would have been just as effective as those Bollards, because they're only there to deter traffic. Easy for you to say, deter traffic, not to stop traffic. There is a massive difference between a deterrent and something that is meant to stop a vehicle. Big difference. And I'd also like to remind everybody, these idiots like this idiot that you're seeing talking right here, I think this is a city council member, the mayor, city council, all the city representatives, the chief of police, all these people have been fighting tooth and nail to make Bourbon Street what? A gun-free zone. They have been working overtime to do that because they don't think gun owners are responsible enough. So they have tried to make this a gun-free zone. I'm really curious also, guys, in this day and age of cell phones, have you guys seen any footage of the incident? I mean, nobody was taking pictures or video. Again, this was not the crazy part of Bourbon Street. And it was 3:15 a.m. Granted, still plenty of people on Bourbon Street at 3:15. But nobody caught the incident on camera. The people up on the balconies, again, I know this isn't the crazy part of Bourbon. That was a block or so further down. Nobody was filming the people down below or doing anything. It surprises me that yes, I've seen a lot of video after the event, like after it took place and the vehicle had already come to a stop, but I'm not seeing anything of the actual event. I just really wonder what's happening in some of these instances when you don't see anything in this day and age of everybody's got a cell phone and everybody's taking pictures and video or has it in their hand, and then you see somebody plowing through people coming, you see, I'm not saying that this is okay, but you see it every day. When something is happening, instead of the person intervening and trying to help, they pull out their phones and start taking video and pictures. So we're in that day and age, and nobody at this point I've seen has anything.
This culture is what makes people want to come here, and it's the people of the city that drive that culture. And yeah, we're tired of being resilient, but this is the way the world is. We did not create this, but this is the way the world is. People want to, extremists want to send a message in a horrible way, and this is the way the world is. That doesn't mean we're going to give in to them, and we are going to fight back with everything we have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
OPSO Sheriff Susan Hudson just giving us an update.
Oh, that was your sheriff.
Obviously, as we said, the FBI is in charge of this investigation and leading this investigation right now, but it is a unified command here in New Orleans, not just here at NOPD headquarters, but all around this city. When I was over on Bourbon Street earlier, a few hours ago, as they were still sweeping through Bourbon Street and looking at every single corner, there was FBI, state troopers, NOPD, and again, here at NOPD headquarters, in every single direction that I can see. There is every single type of law enforcement agency. Earlier, we saw TSA, we've seen state troopers, Troop NOLA, NOPD, OPSO, TSA, Public Safety Department. Again, every single type of law enforcement agency has their eyes and their efforts on what happened this morning. Of course, working to make sure that the city is safe, tourists are safe, residents are safe, making sure that do they have all the pieces together. We're expecting to get an update from all these law enforcement agencies in about 30 minutes here at NOPD headquarters at 1 p.m. That was supposed to be at 11 a.m. Again, that was pushed back to 1 p.m. We have a statement here from the FBI that I'm going to read part of it. This came in just before Susan Hudson came out and spoke with us. They said, again, we have that identity of the suspect, 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar, a U.S. citizen from Texas. He was driving a Ford pickup truck, which appears to have been rented, and we are working to confirm how the subject came into possession of the vehicle. An ISIS flag was located in the vehicle, and the FBI is working to determine the subject's potential associations and affiliations with terrorist organizations. Weapons and a potential IED were located in the subject's vehicle. Other potential IEDs were also located in the French Quarter. Again, every single law enforcement agency is working on this right now. We're hoping to get more information. A lot of questions still left unanswered. How did this happen? especially why did this happen? What was the motivation behind this? I'm not sure if we'll get that answer, but we're definitely going to ask. Once we get to that press conference in about 30 minutes. This situation is such a fast moving situation. From 1 minute to the next, we're getting more information, more things are coming out. We're hearing from different people. I think the overall message here from everyone is we want to make sure, and they want to make sure, that the city is safe and that nothing else is going to happen. And they got every single corner of this investigation. Every stone is being turned over. As we heard from Congressman Troy Carter earlier, they're putting, again, every single effort into making sure that they have all the questions answered and they leave nothing left unturned. A lot of people really hurt by this situation. You just heard from Sheriff Susan Hudson that this is really affecting the department, as I'm sure other departments as well as first responders. You see the carnage that Chief Kirkpatrick was speaking about. So yeah, a lot of moving things right now. We're about to head inside to get that update from law enforcement. For now, reporting live at NOPD headquarters, Alyssa Curtis, WWL Louisiana.
All right, Alyssa, thank you so much. And as Alyssa just mentioned, at 1 o'clock, we're going to bring you that news conference live from FBI officials, of course, local law enforcement as well as city leaders. We have one city leader with us right now. Again, joining us, Oliver, you listened to what Sheriff Susan Hudson had to say, and you were inside of the emergency room as people were being brought in and having conversations with people who were impacted. Can you tell us what
Interesting.
you
Thank
saw
you.
there?
Well, I want to thank the sheriff. She's also been part of the briefing about how we move forward this morning. But the medical professionals at University Hospital, many who were off came back in. I didn't see any life-threatening injuries while I was there. Everyone seemed to be stable. The 2 officers who were there seemed to be stable. But man, we were so fortunate to have our medical professionals not only there and ready, but those who could help come back to service our community. And as I said before, to see other men and women of the police department come out and check on their colleagues, right? And I'll share a little funny story. One of the officers who was there because of his wounds, when we asked him what he wanted, he said he just wanted to get a Sprite.
Okay.
He said to somebody, just bring him a soft drink.
Right.
He'll be okay.
Something to comfort him.
Yeah. And he was, his family was there with him. The other officer, his dad was there. And one of the officers finally went to sleep and he was getting some rest while the other guy was there with his family members.
I mean, it's certainly such good news to hear that they are talking and engaging in that way. I also know that you mentioned that you were in that briefing with some law enforcement officials earlier this afternoon or earlier today. I would like to know, what can you tell us about what happened in there? How are we going to move forward? What kind of discussions?
I mean, that's a great question. For the citizens out there, you need to know that they're assessing the situation, reassessing the situation now. How do we take a look at the making sure the
real quick, I want to mention also that I've heard no mention of the firearm that the terrorists used either. I've heard nothing about that. So Royal Sinesta. Okay, so that's right in front of where he was. Excuse me 1 second, guys. Just trying to pinpoint. If you guys paid attention to any of my Trump assassination coverage, I'm a nerd when it comes to stuff like this, as far as pinpointing exactly where something happened and looking at trajectories and stuff like that. So that's why it appears that this was dead in front of the Royal Sinesta. So I'm going to look at that. I'll put an additional video up on this in a day or so with some of these facts. Anyway, the firearm that was used, that this terrorist used to shoot at law enforcement before law enforcement finished him off, I can't tell where that is. They have not, to my knowledge, they have not disclosed what the guy shot at law enforcement with. So I'm still curious what kind of firearm was used. It would not surprise me if it's an AK-47. The tool of choice by the jihadist, but we'll see. I mean, we'll see what it is. I'm sure the ATF has already been summoned to stick their nose into this, as if they are the experts. We've seen what those experts are managed to pull off whenever they get involved. But I'm sure every federal agency has their, I mean, they've got to justify the overtime and all that. I'm sure they're all involved in this. I did find it kind of funny this morning that when I looked at uh, the news conference, that the mayor of New Orleans, Latoya the Destroyer, she clearly had gotten hammered last night because she was hung over, likely still drunk. She's known for that, like in the party, and she's just she's a piece of work. She's a piece of garbage. So I'm sure this was very inconvenient for her. They had to probably get her out of her drunken stupor and tell her what had happened, and then she had to sober up as fast as possible. So kind of interesting there. Let me go back.
Texas, the FBI is saying that an ISIS flag was located in his vehicle along with a potential IED, and there were also other potential IEDs located in the French Quarter. So the FBI is leading this investigation, but we do know that local law enforcement is playing a huge role in supporting them in this effort and in the investigation.
I know we talk about local law enforcement and what they're doing, as well as the ATF, the FBI. They are currently right now on Mandeville Street. That is where our reporter Winston Reed is right now.
Oh,
And
Mandeville
that is where
Street.
Winston says apparently they were drawn to this location because of a fire at a home the suspect potentially was renting as an Airbnb. Winston, what more can you tell us?
Right now, residents who live in this St. Roch neighborhood, they've been forced to evacuate their homes because of that reported fire earlier this morning. The investigation has expanded from Bourbon Street in the French Quarter over here to the St. Roch neighborhood off of Mandeville. And I'm here with Jeff Gonzalez, who's one of those people here this morning who had to evacuate the St. Roch neighborhood. Thank you for joining us. Now, tell me, Jeff, where is the house that you were at and you were staying at in accordance to the Airbnb that investigators are surrounding?
I'm the house right next door.
You're right next door. Okay, can you just walk me through this morning, just play out what happened?
I left the house about 5 o'clock to bring my sister to the airport, and I noticed that the smell in the air was what we thought was fireworks the night before. You could smell it even at 12:30 when we got home, but it was really strong at 5 o'clock in the morning. But I was on my way to the airport and didn't stop. When I got back from the airport at 6 was when the fire trucks were there.
Were you able to get back into the home after you came back from the airport?
I was. At that point, they had contained the fire. There were still hoses going into the house. And one of the residents there said the damage was minimal and no one was hurt. And so I went into the house and talked with my partner about it for a bit. And then we went back to sleep and woken up a couple hours later to a knock on the door saying that the area was being evacuated.
And walk me through that evacuation. What were you told by law enforcement and where did you have to go after that evacuation?
They explained only that it might be in connection to the events that happened on Bourbon Street last night and that the Ring camera footage from our place was of great interest to them. So I left with the dog, but my partner is still there in the area of interest with the footage, going over it with the police. And
so he's over, your partner is still at the house?
And I left without my phone, so I have had no contact with him.
No contact. Can you tell me, have you seen anything suspicious? You know, neighbors have said that they've seen a white truck in the area prior to that terrorist attack over in the French Quarter. Have you seen a white truck? Have you seen anything suspicious? Have you seen the suspect at all?
No, I haven't. And honestly, I was going to get my sister to the airport, so I wasn't really paying attention to.
Y'all crazy in the comment section.
Nothing suspicious over the past 24, 48 hours?
No, just that smell when we got home, but we attributed it to fireworks.
And that is an Airbnb, so oftentimes there are transient people visiting the area who are staying at that house besides.
Yeah, my boyfriend's parents stayed there at Thanksgiving.
Any idea on the extent of the damage of that home right now? We aren't able to get a clear visual of the house from where we were standing.
What I was told was that it was minimal, and there was a 2-hour gap between when the firemen had said that it was contained to when we were evacuated. So my understanding was that they found something that made them evacuate the neighborhood beyond it just being a regular fire.
Right. So is everybody in your home, and do you know of anybody in your neighborhood who, any reported injuries, anyone hurt?
I have not heard of anybody hurt, but again, I have no contact with my boyfriend right now. So,
all right. Jeff, thank you so much for that update. So that's Jeff Gonzalez. He was evacuated earlier today following the report of the fire at an Airbnb right next door. He was in the house right next door to that Airbnb that had the reported fire, and that is where you see all the law enforcement agents and New Orleans Fire as well in front of that home. And he did say that his partner is going over video footage with law enforcement to get more details and more clarity on this investigation. Of course, we now know the name of the suspect, and perhaps we are able to see the suspect on video. I mean, what direction is the ring camera? Well, it's facing forward, so will we be able to see the suspect at all?
It's possible, but I was evacuating with the dog when they were just getting the footage. That was 4 hours ago, but I've had no contact, so I don't know what's on there.
All right, so again, his partner is going over that Ring doorbell camera footage. So hopefully we'll be able to get an update on what investigators see on that footage, and we will keep you up to date. And again, law enforcement, NOPD, and other law enforcement agents and agencies are going to hold a briefing at around 1 o'clock. So less than 30 minutes, about 25 minutes from now. So that's the latest here from the St. Rock neighborhood, Winston Reed, WWL, Louisiana.
That reporter's struggling, man.
Thank you so much. Now, we were talking about this earlier. There
Oh
are
my
multiple
goodness.
locations in regards to where there's a
That was
potential
worth
attack could
it.
have happened. So you have this on Bourbon Street where the car attack happened. They said that the suspect was found with a long gun with a silencer, as well as being found with a potential explosive device, 2 devices that actually had to be detonated, and several devices were detonated around the French Quarter, whether that was near Jack's Brewery in certain locations. So this is a situation where people are, and even what's happening over on Mandeville Street, it's still a very active situation, a situation where it's very fluid and it could change at any moment.
Yeah, we were just speaking with Councilman Thomas here. He said that law enforcement is working very diligently to, first of all, figure out if this person acted alone or if there are potentially other people involved in this situation. We know that the law enforcement has swept several properties in the French Quarter. That includes the French Market, the St. Roch Market, Colonnade Shops, also Cafe Du Monde. We know that there were, as you mentioned, those potential IEDs found in other places in the French Quarter. We don't know for sure
if they were
where they
explosive
were,
devices,
or if they were explosive devices. There's so much here that is changing so quickly, and so much that we're learning right now.
All right, we have our coverage continuing. Leah McNeil has been out all morning for us. Leah, do we have any updates from where you are?
Well, guys, I just spoke to a business owner who actually owns a business right here behind me, the Kilwins Chocolates and Ice Cream. He says that they were actually closing up shop this morning when he just heard all of the screaming, the shouting, and even some of those shots that were fired out here on Bourbon Street for this morning. As you can see right now, still a very active scene out here. He did go inside to try to retrieve some surveillance camera video. He said his cameras didn't capture enough the way they were angled, so unfortunately won't be any help to police. But he says that it was just unfortunately not a sight that he is not used to seeing. He says unfortunately there's always a lot of crime that he experiences having his business in this location, especially when it comes to people coming in and out of Bourbon Street. But nonetheless, he said he's not worried about the business that he is going to lose today. He's worried about the people, those 10 people who lost their lives, and also those other people who were injured now trying to recover in the hospital this morning. So business owners are, again, he says he was grateful for the swift police response, but he is, like many other people I've heard today, say that they are really want to know more about what the city is going to do when it comes to making sure that Bourbon Street is more secure, that the French Quarter is more secure. He did mention that, of course, we have Mardi Gras coming up, the Sugar Bowl today, and also other events that we always have all year round. So he says he's very interested to see what the city's going to do more to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again.
Leah, thank you so much for your reporting down from, she's at Canal and Bourbon Street right now.
Yes.
Certainly so active. We see lots of law enforcement behind her.
Yeah, so we talk about the Sugar Bowl that's coming up, which that is a lot of conversation actually, and I think we're going to hear a little bit more about what happens, as that game usually is an evening game, so it hasn't happened for a few hours. We can tell you that the Superdome has been swept, or is currently being swept by police, but I can say we are talking about one of the biggest games that's coming up in the city of New Orleans, with that being the Super Bowl and the NFL did issue a statement, and I'm just going to read this in part. It says the NFL and the local host committee have been working collaboratively with local, state, and federal agencies the past 2 years and have developed comprehensive security plans. These planning sessions will continue as they do with all major NFL events, and we are confident attendees will have a safe and enjoyable Super Bowl experience. That was a question that we posed, that we've been posing all day. We heard from Sheriff Susan Hudson, and that we posed to Councilman Oliver Thomas to talk a little bit more about how do we ensure the safety of not just the people who are visiting the city of New Orleans, but at its core, still the French Quarter, while it is a very fun tourist destination, it is still a community, a neighborhood where people live. So ensuring the people's safety there as well, local safety.
And not only that you are safe, but that you feel safe, because the perception of being safe in a city when you have seen things or heard of things like this happening, that's so important, because you want people to come to your city and enjoy it.
We're going into our feelings now. All right. So
not in any danger whenever they're out in places like
apparently, I do think that Mandeville Street issue where the little guy who was talking about his partner, the neighbor, the house fire that was in there, citizen from Texas. Interesting.
And we now have a name of that suspect.
Yeah, we just heard from the FBI a short time ago confirming that name. That is Shamsuddin Jabbar. He is 42 years old, and we know at this time he is a U.S. citizen from Texas. Now, this information is coming from the FBI. They're saying an ISIS flag was found in that vehicle, and also a possible explosive device was found in that vehicle as well. That was a Ford truck that was rented from an app called Turo. So he was not the owner of this vehicle, but rather rented that vehicle. It had a Texas license plate. And at this time, we are trying to learn more about where that truck may have come from, where it had been in the days and hours leading up to this incident.
Yes, and I want to just jump back to the Super Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, actually. We've been talking about possible delays in the Sugar Bowl. Well, what could possibly happen? We can confirm that the Sugar Bowl officials and law enforcement, they are in talks right now to possibly delay the Sugar Bowl until tomorrow. We don't know if that's going to happen,
I
but
don't think
there
that'll
is a
happen.
conversation that is happening, and rightfully so, given the situation that's gone on. And unfortunately, also the tragic situation, we also found out that according to the University of Georgia, they're one of the teams that are playing tonight and potentially playing tonight in the Sugar Bowl. One of their students was critically injured in that French Quarter attack. They released a statement just a couple of moments ago saying, at this point, we have learned that a University of Georgia student was critically injured in the attack and is receiving medical treatment. This is from the president of the university. They said they spoke to the student's family and they shared their concerns, support, and well wishes on behalf of the entire UGA community. Again, Sugar Bowl brings in more than 60,000 fans. And you're talking about that in addition to our New Year's Eve celebrations and the people locally who enjoy what's happening in downtown New Orleans.
And we've been talking so much about what we're learning about the suspect, but we really don't know at this point very much about the victims of this attack.
Okay, so one of the things that's interesting is one of my questions was going to be earlier. Why did this person, if they're saying now that this person was an American citizen, wonder how that happened. Sound like a fast track to me. But this terrorist Islamic jihadist, I'll call it what it is, was an American citizen. Why did he go to Mexico? They claim that the truck passed through Eagle Pass from Mexico into the United States 2 days ago on Monday. So I have to ask this. There's two questions or two things to discuss here. One, why did he go to Mexico? What was he in Mexico for? Or if they're saying that the truck was rented, so that wasn't his vehicle. Maybe he rented it yesterday or the day before, after it had gone to Mexico. Again, I'm being kind by saying that, but maybe there's no connection to this guy, to this vehicle having gone to Mexico and then come back on Monday, if in fact it were a rental vehicle, because the guy may have rented it somewhere else in Texas after it got back from the trip through Eagle Pass. He may have rented it after that and then driven it to the New Orleans area to commit this act of terrorism. So again, tons of questions that are left unanswered. A lot of what we're talking about now, the info is still trickling in. This surprises me what they're talking about here about the Sugar Bowl possibly being delayed. I don't think they will play it tomorrow. Possibly. Let's see. I'm just curious. I'm looking real quick. I know how these agencies work big time as far as are there any other games tomorrow? I think most of the games are today. So if they were to move it to tomorrow, other than probably NFL, tomorrow would be Thursday. Yeah, they may have an NFL game tomorrow. I don't believe it would interfere. No, I don't think it would interfere with anything tomorrow. So I suppose they could. Now, what that means is this is why I don't think they're going to move it. Hotel rooms, what do? Hotels ain't giving you a free night. Airplane, all your airline tickets, all those people who flew into New Orleans were probably flying out tomorrow. So now they would all have to change that. I don't think they will move the game. I think they will convince themselves that, hey, what's 24 hours going to gain us? It doesn't gain us anything. If we're going to play it tomorrow, let's just go ahead and play it today at its regularly scheduled time. I don't think they'll move the game. It will shock me if they move that game. Just saying. And another thing to think about too is if you really want to be honest about acting like terrorists can't disrupt what happens here in the United States, then you want to play the game, right? You don't want a terrorist to think that they can do something like this and it disrupts that much. Look, here we go. I want to pull their audio.
Identified 18-year-old Nakira Dido. She is a Mississippi teen, and we also got a tweet from the University of Georgia saying one of their students was injured in the attack, and they are in critical condition. So there are, talks of postponing the Sugar Bowl. Of course, nothing has been decided just yet, but having that student involved, of course, in the attack is going to hit home for many of those fans. You can probably see there are some FBI agents still down there. Officers are still just surveying the scene. There are some evidence markers still down there as well that we can see. Just still trying to find out, exactly what happened. There are a lot of questions going around, and of course we have that police presser where hopefully some of those questions will be answered. I've heard some concern from people walking by about, should the Sugar Bowl go on, are they going to be safe out there? I think that's something that a lot of people are concerned about. I even talked to a few fans who will not be going to the game. They decided to go ahead and wrap up early. Now, whenever we were down at the Dome this morning, we can confirm there was a really heavy police presence. We've been reporting they were doing sweeps of the domes. They had bomb dogs out there just securing the scene. So we do know that there is a heavy presence with multiple law enforcement agencies, and that's kind of what I've been telling some of the tourists who seem to be concerned about should they go to the game. It does seem to be heavily secured, but of course you can't blame anyone for feeling very nervous at this time. The corridor during a big event like this, a big weekend like this, is generally bustling. It's a very happy place, a joyful place where people are ready to celebrate, and it definitely is definitely a more solemn scene out here this morning as investigators they survey the scene and see just what happened. Reporting live from the French Quarter, Amelia Strahan, WWL Louisiana.
Amelia, thank you so much for that. We are continuing to learn more about, every time we check in with one of our reporters, we're learning a little bit more about the investigation, what's happening going forward. as many of them have mentioned, and as we have mentioned many times, this is changing really quickly.
Yes, we do have, again, the security measures that are being taken place and then conversations that are still happening. Councilman Oliver Thomas just confirmed for us that there are still conversations happening as to how to prevent this from happening moving forward. We are not going into a period where we don't have a lot of people in the city. During this season, we go from New Year's Eve, we're going straight into Mardi Gras with some of the earliest Mardi Gras balls happening this Saturday, and some of them happening at the Superdome. You go into parade season, you're going into the Super Bowl, and then you're going into the season of festivals.
Yep.
So, of course, this is top of mind for everyone who visits any event that contains a large amount of people, in which for us, that is half the year.
Yeah, and there's a parade scheduled for the French Quarter on Monday night with
Right.
the kickoff to 12th night. So this is, like you said, not something that there will be time to heal from and to really spend time reassessing the security measures for. This has to be solved now.
Yeah, you have to act right now. And that conversation is happening within 10 minutes. At 1 p.m., we are going to get a live news conference that is from federal officials, FBI, which have taken over this investigation, including New Orleans police, ATF, and many people who are investigating.
Guys, if you're okay with it, the press conference starts in 10 minutes. I'm going to go grab me a bottle of water. Grab me a quick something to eat, and I'll be back here in about 9 minutes for the press conference on this. So stay tuned, guys. I'll be right back.
Who died during this horrible attack. We know at least 35 people in addition were injured.
Right. And right now, unfortunately, we did again just hear from Amelia Strahan spoke about this a little bit earlier about a University of Georgia student that is a part of those injuries that are in the hospital right now. Oliver Thomas giving us an update a little bit earlier about what he saw. 2 police officers are in the hospital, of course, that were injured by gunfire. And people who don't realize when you think about how this can happen and where this happened, this truck drove down a very busy Bourbon Street. It hit 10 people, injured 30 others, potentially more. And apparently, when there was an exchange of gunfire between the suspect and police officers, the suspect was killed in that exchange of gunfire. And when they arrived to the suspect's vehicle, they saw that he had full body armor on. They found IEDs in the car. They found him to have headgear on as well. So he was prepared for a major attack.
Yeah, this could have gotten much worse than it did, and it was already such a horrible incident. I can't imagine this being worse. Councilman Thomas talked about those 2 officers being heroes for taking the suspect out before any more damage could be done. And we know that those 2 officers were shot and are in the hospital, but are awake. They're talking. He said one of them was asking for a soft drink. So we know that hopefully they're on the mend and will recover from this.
I know. We talked about the Sugar Bowl, and let's talk Super Bowl. We just got a statement in from the president and CEO of the New Orleans Super Bowl host committee. They're in contact again with local, state, and federal public safety partners, and they're actively monitoring this situation. And they say fan and event security is a priority for Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation, the NFL, the Saints, and the state as well. And they've been collaborating with the public safety partners in the NFL for more than 2 years on the comprehensive security plans for the 2025 Super Bowl. I can only imagine that those security plans might be altered slightly. One of the things that we've talked about throughout the day, this is something that I brought up to Councilman Oliver Thomas, and though we didn't speak very heavily on it, were the bollards that were not there. The bollards that were in place in 2017 and were in the portion in progress rather of being removed and replaced and upgraded apparently so that they can stop incidents like this from happening. That didn't happen until November of 2024. That's when the construction began, and it was supposed to be finished by February of 2025. But those bollards were put in place by former Mayor Mitch Landrieu, and we've attempted and made attempts to reach out to him. Hopefully he can get back to us. But those bollards are put in place to prevent incidents like this from happening. But I think even outside of these bollards, there needs to be a larger conversation. Who needs to get access to Bourbon Street, to the French Quarter when we have these things happen? Usually the police department has protocols in place. You and I, we can get in because we work here. But we've seen during major events, there's usually some sort of protocol where police officers are blocking access from entrance.
And also, how robust does that block need to be? Is it one police car? Is it multiple? Is it a truck full of sand, which you've seen at some other events. Are the bollards enough, even when they are in place? Is there a way that people can get around them? But like we've mentioned, they were not in place for this, and we know that this was a huge weekend. It was a planned well in advance. We knew that this was going to be a big weekend in New Orleans, and those safety measures were not in place. So what can be done to make sure that not just for the Super Bowl, but for every event that we have coming up, that things are locked down tighter?
I know that right now, again, they're still investigating on Mandeville Street and the St. Rock neighborhood, a home that could potentially, or that was potentially being rented by the suspect. They have the vehicle that the suspect came in. We did confirm that that suspect is from Texas, drove that vehicle to New Orleans with the purpose of doing just what he has done early in the morning hours on Bourbon Street. And right now, people are all over the world are sending their condolences. We've heard from every single local, state, and federal official, including President Biden, who did issue a statement and say that he is being updated and has spoke to Mayor Cantrell and other local state officials about what happened here. And I'm actually just seeing here the Peach Bowl today. There's another game, a bowl game in Atlanta that they held maybe a moment of silence to honor and to think about the people who were injured and killed in this attack on Bourbon Street.
And we also have mentioned there are potentially tens of thousands of people in the city right now who came here to have a wonderful and memorable, positive, fun weekend. And there are also people who are not very familiar with our city. They're not from here, they're coming in from out of town. And so this is not only terrifying to people who were out there last night and were witnesses to this, or were potentially staying in hotels nearby, but also to people who want to go to the game today, if that game does take place as planned, and are nervous and don't know if everything is totally secure. So Councilman Thomas said they're really focusing on sweeping the dome, making sure that those things are safe.
Yeah, rightfully so. Everyone should, really be nervous, especially as this is an active investigation, and there were potential for these IEDs to be placed throughout the city. Hopefully, they're likely, if I can just say this, they're probably making sure that there are no other potential devices or possible devices that could possibly go out. I want to hear a little bit more. I think we spoke with someone visiting, talking about safety and security, with that being top of mind after this incident.
It's kind of shocking. I just lost my daughter last month to a DUI guy. And I just know she was watching over us. So, I know she got us away. Time to go home, Daddy. So, but I feel safe here. I see, all the police and the different authorities around. And we're just going to go in there this afternoon and watch that ball game and take the Lord with us.
When you're talking about anything of this magnitude within New Orleans or with any area, safety is usually top of mind, given the fact that we've just recently had, as we just spoke about earlier, in Germany at the Christmas market, multiple people mowed over by a vehicle that drove through that market as an attack there. And we've seen potential attacks, and not necessarily, a couple of years ago, there was not necessarily an attack. This was a DUI, someone who ran over maybe more than 24 people. I don't know the exact number, but you think about all of those possibilities, and how do we keep every person safe? The people who live in New Orleans, the people who are visiting New Orleans, and continue to attract the major events that we do. And I think when Oliver Thomas was here telling us about that meeting, that's the conversation you have to have. And those need to be put in place, not tomorrow, but it's probably being put in place right now, which is why I question if the French Quarter is open for business, or if they are only allowing residents or business owners to come in.
And it does put officials in kind of a hard spot here, because you have all those business owners who support their families with the money made from these very busy weekends, and they anticipated a huge busy day today, Typically, this street today, leading up to the game tonight at 7:45, would have been packed with people eating and drinking and all those celebratory things on New Year's Day. And these businesses are shut down for now. And much of the French Quarter right now is off limits to many, many people.
If you're joining us in about 2 minutes, we will go live to a press briefing that's being held by local law enforcement, state law enforcement, the federal government as well. The FBI joining us now to give us an update on where they stand in this investigation. We know that there were multiple areas where people are investigating it, and they still have a lot of this taped off. And obviously, this is a situation that it's not just open and shut. You don't know necessarily where these possible devices could have been, where they might be, or what he had planned, or what his motivations were. But they did mention that there was an investigation into a flag, and we've shown you video and pictures of the truck that was used in this attack, and a flag was on the back of that truck, and we're being told that this is potentially a flag dedicated to ISIS.
Yeah, that was one of the things that the FBI told us just a short time ago, along with some potential IEDs that were found in that car, and other IEDs discovered, potential IEDs, I should say, discovered around the French Quarter.
All right, and if you guys are just joining us, we are waiting right now for a press conference to start in just a minute or so to give us an update, a desperate update that so many people would like to know. A lot of you, if you were likely out for the New Year's Eve holiday and New Year's holiday, you probably are just joining us or just waking up after being with family and friends, but it's unfortunate we have to wake up to such a tragedy. A vehicle driving down a crowded Bourbon Street, 10 people dead, confirmed dead, and 35 people injured in the hospital right now, mostly at UMC Hospital. And unfortunately, these people, we're hoping, some of them, they have critical injuries, but we're hoping that they can recover. We do know, as this person was driving down Bourbon Street, that 2 officers exchanged gunfire with the suspect and killed him.
Yes, at least 2 police officers involved in that shootout, and we know that they did shoot and kill this suspect. The FBI has confirmed that suspect is 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar. He's a citizen from Texas, and we know that he drove a rented truck here from Texas in order to do this. We have heard from law enforcement again and again today saying this was a very intentional act, and that this suspect knew exactly what he was doing and was intending to cause as much damage as possible, and was stopped in his tracks by several officers.
There was a conversation about how he could have gotten on Bourbon Street. Usually when you have the events of this magnitude, Bourbon Street is blocked off. We've had conversations, I've saw many of your conversations about the Bollards that were there, or rather the ones that weren't there as they were being replaced, and was supposed to be done by February 2025 before the start of the Super Bowl. But apparently there were also police units, but this person must have gone on the sidewalk, driven around those units so he can do as much damage as possible.
And what we have not seen a lot of yet is video of this truck, because it had to have been driving somewhere around New Orleans before this incident happened. And so I'm sure in the coming hours, we're going to likely see some surveillance video, some other video of this truck being seen around the city, and how exactly it got onto Bourbon Street and did so much damage.
Yeah, you're getting a look at a picture that was taken on Bourbon Street of the suspect's vehicle. When police did go in after there was an exchange of gunfire, the suspect apparently had tactical gear on. I was told that he had a helmet on, and he was found with a long gun as well as IEDs, and there were potential devices in other places. And because there were potential devices in other places, a lot of businesses, including French Quarter businesses, are taking precautions and asking people to report anything they may find suspicious right now.
And because there were those potential IEDs or explosive devices found other places in the French Quarter, that implies that either he had some help doing this, or that he was in New Orleans planning this before he got behind the wheel of that truck.
And it's not just impacting people in New Orleans. I'm just seeing something now from New Orleans City Park due to the New Year's mass casualty attack in downtown New Orleans and the need to direct important resources elsewhere. Celebration in the Oaks, it is canceled for the remainder of the season, and the ticket holders will be contacted if they have any more information. So you have people taking precaution. everywhere, and it's very shocking. I will say this, to see an attack like this happen in New Orleans, but and we've had several things happen before, but I don't believe we've seen anything of this magnitude.
No, and I'm sure many of us in New Orleans had the same reaction. You wake up, you check your phone, or somebody calls you, and it's unbelievable. It's one of those things you hope it never happens in your backyard, and when it does, it feels very surreal.
All right.
Certainly such a tragic day for so many here.
All right, we're awaiting a press conference to happen right now where federal officials and local officials will give us an update. The FBI has taken over this investigation, and they're going to give us an update on where they stand on this investigation. I know that Congressman Troy Carter is going to be there, including Sheriff Susan Hudson, and Governor Jeff Landry.
Yes, we know at this time, so we've been going back to Amelia Strahan, who is on Bourbon Street. She's been kind of keeping an eye on things, and it doesn't seem like there is all that much action, for lack of a better word, happening on Bourbon Street
We're
right now.
waiting on
However,
the press
that
conference, by the way, guys.
potential scene, the Airbnb that they're suspecting that this suspect may have stayed in the St. Roch neighborhood, and that's at Mandeville and Urquhart, where we know that they have evacuated several neighbors, and the FBI and the ATF have been there with canines this morning and early this afternoon, checking into what was going on there.
Yeah. Now, what we're hoping to hear from in this press conference, because there are a lot of unknowns here, though we have our suspect down. What was the motive for the attack? You know, was he actually connected to any terrorist organizations? Did he act alone? And that is a big question that was even mentioned by Councilman Oliver Thomas on whether he acted alone, if there were other people potentially who were participating in this. We don't know if that explosive device was operational. I know we heard from David Hammer earlier that there were two potential devices that were set off, but we don't know if it was operational. And we're still learning a little bit more about this suspect. As far as we know, we have his name and the fact that he came from Texas, rented a truck via Turo, and came to New Orleans specifically. I question, and I know that there were large crowds everywhere. You're coming from Texas, you know, you're passing up some major cities here. What brought him to this city?
New Orleans?
Yeah, what brought him to this city?
Easy
and
target.
To Bourbon Street in particular.
And also, what stops did he make between Texas and Bourbon Street?
Yes.
Where did he stop? Did he stay? Did he possibly place any type of device that was intended to cause more tragedy and more damage? There are so many things that we don't know at this time, and I'm hoping that we learn more at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, we know right now they're setting up for that press conference, and hopefully we'll get more information. And as far as I can see, it seems like every top official within the state and the city is joining several local law enforcement and federal law enforcement officers on that press conference. Is going to start in just a couple of minutes. And what we're hoping happens is we can get answers, more answers as to what brought this here, what kind of attack, why he brought this kind of attack here, and what his motivation was. So let's listen in right now. Hopefully we can get
Here we go,
answers.
guys.
And then do a follow-the-run show, and then we'll take 1 or 2 questions afterwards.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alethea Duncan. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in charge here in FBI New Orleans. Thank you for being here today and for your patience. First, I want to acknowledge the victims of today's horrific attack. The FBI and our partners are working diligently to investigate and find answers on behalf of the victims, the citizens and residents of Louisiana, and everyone visiting the city. I'm going to provide you some facts and information about what we do know. I know that all of you will have questions, and we will try to provide some answers, but this is an ongoing investigation that's rapidly evolving. So there are some questions I will be unable to answer at this time. The FBI is the lead investigative agency, and we're investigating this as an attack of terrorism along with our partners. Today,
She's
at
the same one that said it
approximately
wasn't
15
terrorism
a.m.
earlier.
Central Standard Time, an individual drove a pickup truck into a crowd on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, killing at least 10 individuals and injuring dozens more. After hitting the crowd, he exited the vehicle and fired upon local law enforcement. Law enforcement returned fire, and the subject was pronounced deceased at the scene. 2 law enforcement officers were injured and transported to local hospitals. The subject has been identified as 42-year-old Samsud Dim Jabbar, a U.S. born citizen from Texas. He was driving a Ford pickup truck, which appears to be rented, and we are working to confirm how the subject became in possession of this vehicle. An ISIS flag was located on the trailer hitch of the vehicle, and the FBI is working to determine the subject's potential associations and affiliations with terrorist organizations. Weapons and potential improvised explosive devices, IEDs, were located in the subject's vehicle. Other potential IEDs were also located in the French Quarter. As of now, 2 IEDs have been found and rendered safe. The FBI Special Agent bomb technicians, as well as our local law enforcement partners, have been working to determine if any of these devices are viable, and they will work to render those devices safe. The FBI, we are working with our partners to investigate this as an act of terrorism. We're aggressively running down all of the leads to identify the possible subject's associates. We're working to ensure that there is no further threat. We do not believe that Jabbar was solely responsible. We're aggressively running down every lead, including those of his known associates. That's why we need the public's help. We are asking if anybody has any interactions with Samsud Dim Jabbar in the last 72 hours that you contact us. The FBI is asking the public's help. We're asking anyone who has information, video, or pictures to provide it to the FBI. We have set up a digital tip line as well as our 1-800 number, 1-800-CALL-FBI. Please provide us with any information that can assist us in this investigation. Once again, thank you for your patience and assistance. For an updated statements or information, please check the FBI's website and our social media accounts. I will now turn over to Mayor Cantrell. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This is a dummy right here.
Thank you, Agent Duncan, for your leadership and the full support of the FBI. First and foremost, I want to express my deepest condolences to the families and loved ones that were impacted by this tragedy on Bourbon Street and in the heart of the city of New Orleans. And I know that the entire New Orleans City Council grieves along right with me, no doubt about that, and our people and our families. My priority will continue to be to ensure that victims that remain on Bourbon Street now will be serviced and removed as soon as possible. But as stated, the FBI is in charge of this investigation and are doing everything necessary to make this happen. I also want to acknowledge hearing from President Biden, all of our federal partners, but most importantly, calling Governor Landry this morning, responded with haste. And we do say thank you. And of course, a demonstration of a unified support is right here in this room. That's how we collectively responded to this tragedy in the city of New Orleans. The mission now is to facilitate, support, and coordinate safety procedures to keep our residents and our visitors safe. I've gone to the hospital along with Chief Kirkpatrick to visit our police officers, and considering their injuries, they're doing well. As I mentioned, this investigation is ongoing, and the FBI remains the lead in the investigation. It is an active crime scene as well. We are committed, no doubt, to uncovering all details surrounding this tragedy. And we're taking every necessary step to put even more safety procedures in place, especially given the nature of the investigation. I'm going to ask people to do not go around our secured area if there is no essential need to do so. It matters, and again, it is an active crime scene. I also want you all to know that the Greater New Orleans Foundation has set up a fund to assist victims, and that information will be provided to you. Thank you, Ganoff. Again, I want to thank this unified team. We're leaning in. We will be relentless, and we will do everything that it takes to render real justice. This team will. I want to also just thank our citizens for your heartfelt prayers. New Orleans is a world-class city, and I can say that I've heard from world leaders all this morning and up until now, in addition to my brother and sister mayors across this country. They're calling, they're responding, and they're standing with the city of New Orleans. And what they always say and want me to reiterate, they understand the resilience of this community. And we're strong in that regard. And I will say second to none.
She's so dumb.
So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our governor. And as I mentioned, who has not wavered any in leaning in, providing the necessary support, and standing right here with me. And I say, thank you, Governor. And I know the First Lady is standing with us as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Again, I want to thank the mayor. Since about 3:45 this morning, when she called me, we have all been working just around the clock to both secure the city and to solve this act. You know, again, I want to reiterate that our prayers go out with all of those who have been affected by this tragedy. I want to thank our law enforcement officers. I want to thank our medical personnel. I want to thank our first responders. And most importantly, I want to thank the two New Orleans police officers who not only laid their life on the line, but were able to eliminate the threat this morning. Let me say, we have made public safety a state priority from day one. And I think that if you look around me today, right now, and you look at the people who are standing around, that is their commitment as well. We intend to be transparent in assessing any defects that may have existed in the system so that we can address it. It's the only way to ensure that any mistakes that were made are corrected. Specifically, we have been trying and working very diligently to address security concerns in preparation for the Super Bowl since October. And it's interesting because, ironically, in preparation for the Super Bowl, I had intended to issue an emergency declaration tomorrow so that we could bring all of our federal, state, and local agencies to bear in preparation for the Super Bowl and Mardi Gras. But because of the events today, I have amended that emergency declaration and issued it today. So again, that declaration will allow our federal, state, and local partners to bring all of the resources necessary to get the city safe. In light of that executive order, I've also ordered the mobilization of a military police company. I've asked General Freelou to mobilize a military police company to assist both New Orleans Police and LSP and the FBI. It is important for our citizens and guests of this state to know that we're doing everything we can to secure their safety in this city. We want to make it clear, the Superdome and the surrounding area is safe. But I've always said that the safety of this entire city is something that is always paramount to me. With that, I would like to turn it over to Jeff, with the Super Bowl committee. Jeff Dunn.
Good afternoon. Obviously, we wish we weren't here for this reason today. The Sugar Bowl Committee has a 90-year history of being a good corporate citizen for the city of New Orleans, and that's why this tragedy hurts us as much as anybody right now. So our condolences, thoughts, and prayers go out to the victims and their families as we all work through this. Of course, anytime we have a major event in the city of New Orleans, public safety is paramount, and we have full faith and confidence in the governor and the mayor and all the assets, the federal, state, and local resources that they've applied to this event so that we can ultimately bring those responsible to justice and carry on with the major events that we have in front of us. Speaking of which, we were scheduled this evening to have a CFP quarterfinal played in the Superdome at 7:45. We have been in consultation with ESPN, with the College Football Playoff, with the Southeastern Conference, with the University of Georgia, with Notre Dame, all parties, and all agree that it's in the best interest of everybody and public safety that we postpone the game for 24 hours.
Caving to the
Work
terrorists.
is fast about to set up a safe and efficient and fun environment for tomorrow night. There'll be more details on that in the coming hours, but for now, that's the plan, that we're going to move forward and play the game. And again, we reiterate our thanks to everyone up here for the important work they're doing. We live in the fun and games world with what we do, but we certainly recognize the importance of this, and we're going to support it 100%. So thank you.
I'd like to bring up Senator Kennedy. I wish I understood better why bad things happen to good people. If I make it to heaven, I'm going to ask. For those people who don't believe in objective evil, all you have to do is look at what happened in our city early this morning. I am, if this doesn't trigger the gag reflex of every American, every fair-minded American, I'll be very surprised. I'm here because these are my people. I'm here because these are my people's friends. I'm here because there are a lot of Louisianians that are scared tonight. I don't want them to be.
I don't think they are.
There's a lot of information going around. Some of it is actually true. Some of it isn't. The federal government is now in charge of this investigation. By that, I mean the White House, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Department of Justice. I have not talked to the FBI. Maybe they've talked to my staff. I don't know. I did talk to the Secretary of Homeland Security a little while ago. And I told him that with all the respect I could muster, that we expect to put the full force and resources of the federal government behind this investigation. Our state troopers, our local police departments, our sheriffs, we've got many sheriffs here today, have been terrific so far. Federal government is cooperating with them. I hope that will continue. Here's what I want to ask from the federal government. Catch these people. Catch these people. And then tell the American people the truth. Now, I don't want you to tell us yet anything that's going to interfere with your investigation. And there are things that I've been told that I think are true that I'm not sharing with you today because it could interfere with their investigation. But after we get to the bottom of this, they need to tell the American people the truth, and the people of New Orleans the truth, and the people of America the truth. I think the mayor and the governor are very wise to postpone this ball game for 24 hours.
They don't.
There's just too much stuff we don't know, and it's just not worth it. But I guess my final point is, I will promise you this: I will, when it is appropriate and this investigation is complete, you will find out what happened and who was responsible, or I will raise fresh hell. And I will chase those in the federal government who are responsible for telling us what happened, like they stole Christmas. Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Congressman Carter, I think you're.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Thank you to all of our law enforcement agents for doing a yeoman's job, for stepping up at a time when we needed you most, for employing the resources of all of our partners. This is all hands on deck. From the White House all the way down. I've been in communication with the White House since early this morning. Secretary Mayorkas, leaders in all of our federal, local, and state agencies. The president has made it very clear that he intends to bring every resource to bear to not only tell the truth, but to provide the resources to bring these cowards to justice. I want to personally thank the men and women in uniform who put their lives on the line to protect our citizens and our visitors. To our mayor and our governor for acting expeditiously and bringing us all together. To our sheriffs from the surrounding areas who have been Johnny on the spot, recognizing that if it happens in New Orleans, it can happen anywhere. We don't have the luxury of being myopic. In this community, we work together.
I'm going to continue with the press conference, but we've learned nothing other than that the Sugar Bowl is going to be postponed 24 hours. These people have told us nothing. This is a big ass circle jerk.
And every agency they're in is on the ground working. And for those who may have played a role in this horrific act of cowardice, we will find you. We will bring you to justice.
Ooh.
New Orleans is a place that heralds its ability to protect its citizens, that heralds its ability to manage major events, Super Bowl, Sugar Bowls, Mardi Gras, Jazz Fest, Essence Festival, you name it. No one does it better than law enforcement in New Orleans and in the surrounding area.
Not really.
Kudos to those two officers who've been wounded.
No,
Our hearts go out to those who lost loved ones. Our hearts go out to those who are wounded and on the mend in the hospital. Citizens, now is the time to stay calm, to be vigilant. This is not a time to come out to sightsee. Listen to your federal, local, state officials. Be vigilant. If you saw something, say something.
Please.
If you
Come
know
on,
something,
man.
tell somebody.
Somebody shut this guy
There are
up.
tip lines, there's information available. Please, all hands on deck. Rest assured that the decision that was made to postpone the game was not done lightly. It was done with one single thing in mind: public safety. Making sure that the citizens and visitors of this great city, not only for this event, but for every event you come to in Louisiana, that you will be safe. And we will use every resource possible. As the governor has said, as the mayor has said, and every law enforcement agent here has said, our energy, our commitment will be to make sure that you are safe now and for every event
Thank
in the
you.
future. God bless you.
One of the most
and let's stay
unsafe cities in the freaking world. Y'all suck at keeping people safe.
I first want to extend my sincerest condolences to the families of the victims. Parents got a phone call last night, early this morning, that no parent ever wants to receive. And as a parent of children who come to New Orleans and spend time here, I know that that is just something that, you know, we hold our breath sometimes till they're home safe, and some people did not come home safe. And we also have some people who are fighting for their lives right now in the hospital. So I'd ask everyone to pray for them. They need our support and they need our prayers. This was a heinous act, a heinous, cowardly act, and we will find them and we will bring them to justice. My office will be providing both investigative and prosecutorial support to the city of New Orleans, to the district attorney, Jason Williams in New Orleans, as I have done for months. We will continue to do that. We will provide the governor with whatever support that he needs, and the governor's office of Homeland Security, whatever support that they need. I'll be here to help. I will be here to stand with the city of New Orleans. We will bring them to justice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor.
Another
Thank you, Governor
DEI.
and Madam Mayor. For those who do not know me, my name is Ann Kirkpatrick. I'm the Chief of Police of New Orleans. My official title is Superintendent, but my role is as Chief of Police.
DEI.
You know, you've heard some of the details today, and over the last 24 hours, we had approximately 400 officers in the French Quarter. And as we know, this is not just an act of terrorism. This is evil. And when we face evil, we have a choice. We can run in fear, or we can indeed stand
Here we
in
go.
strength.
Rah, rah,
In a
rah.
time of crisis, people are looking for leadership. You are looking at the leadership. And I promise you, as the Chief of Police of this city has been tried by fire before. But fire purifies.
Come
Fire
on.
makes things stronger. We have a plan. We know what to do. We are going to get these people. There is a path forward. Very pleased that we will be back to having a wonderful game tomorrow night. New Orleans police have proven their ability to make the city safer. Just 2 years ago, we were the murder capital of America. Today, from that time 2 years ago, we have driven our murder rate more than 50% down. So we have a track record.
That's
But
awesome.
This is different because it's terrorism. Now, I want to thank all of our law enforcement partners. You're fabulous, and we appreciate the partnership. But last night, 3 of our officers engaged this terrorist who shot at them. 3 of the officers returned fire.
It's our job.
Those officers did not run in fear.
our
I
job.
liked what the mayor said this morning. New Orleans police and all law enforcement is built. We are built for dealing with evil, with things that would cause others to be in fear. But instead, our officers, and last night, NOPD particular, stood strong. They did not run.
Oh, God.
They did kill the terrorist. We have 2 officers indeed who received gunfire. They will be okay. We have personally gone to see them. But
Okay.
this is leadership
All right.
for you.
Okay.
And I promise, as the chief of police of this fantastic city, that I will be strong and firm and fearless. Thank you.
Jesus, get out of here.
Thank you. And wrapping it up, I want to just close with a couple of things. I want to thank Senator Kennedy and Congressman Carter. I want to thank again all of our law enforcement officers out there. I want the families,
This was
of the
useless.
victims, to know that I will be issuing an executive order that tomorrow, when Notre Dame plays Georgia, every flag of every state building in this state is going to be at half-mast. In remembrance of them, but remembering something else, that fear in this state is a liar. And these folks right here are going to make sure that justice is served. And for the citizens out there that were saying, well, man, do I really want to go to the Sugar Bowl tomorrow? I tell you one thing, your governor's going to be there. That is proof, believe you me, that that facility in this city is safer today than it was yesterday. And as we come to additional events in this city, I know in speaking with Senator Kennedy and Congressman Carter, and FBI acting director, and the incoming administration, that they are going to ensure that this city has the resources necessary to protect our citizens and our guests. And so with that, we'll take some questions.
All right, if you could, we'll
Finally,
with CBS.
bunch of
Katie,
bull crap,
work
circle
our way
jerking.
across the room. If I miss you, just
Speak,
give me a
man.
holler. I may not see you. Go ahead, Katie.
Thank you, sir. Katie Weiss with CBS News. I mean, I think this has been a really tough day for a lot of people. But at this point, we're hearing that the death toll, according to some FBI sources, has gone up to 15. Is this true?
Who wants to?
Nobody
answer
knows.
I can speak to it.
They don't know.
Do you have a final number?
They don't know.
We do not have a final number. We know that we have confirmed 10, but we did have people who had been transported who were in critical condition. And so I do not know that, but I can confirm 10.
And one quick follow-up question, if I may. We know that there have been some local records in Texas about a misdemeanor background on this suspect. Any signs or warnings ahead of time about this person or their plans for what happened this morning?
Because that is the investigation part, I will give the FBI.
We can't comment at this time.
At this time, we cannot go into details about the subject's history. What I can tell you, the person was an Army veteran. We believe he was honorary discharged, but we're working through this process, figuring out all this information. The goal with the FBI is providing with the most accurate and complete information. So once that information is confirmed, we'll make sure we push that out. Thank you.
Ariel.
At the time, do you know exactly, as far as the victims, how many are from here in Louisiana versus out of state and their ages maybe?
At this time, I can't go into details about all the victims. We want to make sure that first that the family is notified appropriately before we put any information out there. So once the families are all notified, then we'll go ahead and release a statement to everyone.
And I would ask the press, in relation to the victims and those that are in hospitals, if we could just refrain from worrying about them so their loved ones can take care of them and the medical personnel that are trying to get them out of the hospital can do so. And as information becomes available, we want to respect the privacy of those who are still either fighting for their lives or being cared for. Thank you.
A follow-up, if I may.
Go ahead.
You guys mentioned accomplices. You don't think that the suspect acted alone. About how many more suspects are you guys looking into at this point?
It's a range of suspects. And right now with the FBI, we do not want to rule anything out. So that's why we're asking if anyone has had any interaction with the deceased subject Jabbar in the last 72 hours, provide us with this information. You can provide us that information through 1-800-CALL-FBI or our digital tips line, which is available on our social media website, as well as the big FBI website.
Can I say something, Riker? Tell me who you're with. WDSU. Okay, and CBS.
NBC's over here on the right.
Oh, that's unusual position.
I don't get it.
You wouldn't. Look, the FBI is not going to be able to answer those questions. Okay, they will eventually. I promise you. Okay, once the FBI has a chance to investigate all this, along working with state police, working with Homeland Security, working with the city of New Orleans, they're going to tell you what happened. I can promise you that. Or I'm going to raise fresh hell. But right now, they're in the process of trying to catch the other bad guys. And I want to give them the benefit of the doubt for a while.
26.
Yeah, I had a question about the victims. I know that there was obviously gunfire exchange. So I guess how many victims were shot and then how many were injured?
Look, again, let me reiterate both Special Agent Duncan and Senator Kennedy. There's a lot of, I get that y'all want to know minute details.
Were you the one calling a
What
press
we don't wanna
conference?
do is impede this investigation or spend any time talking about things that don't get us closer to hunting these folks down and securing the city. And so at a
You told us
particular
it was
point in
secure.
time, we will release as much information as we can. But at this time, in relation to the investigation, I would ask y'all to refrain from those.
That's our governor. He's actually a
Ladies
good
and gentlemen,
governor.
If we don't, if we were going to just have more of the same, as the governor just said, we're going to provide that information, but we're going to wrap the press conference now.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
Let me finish. You weren't listening. if all of the questions are more of the same, what the governor just said in position, we won't be doing that to provide that information. And if you have a quick, different question, then let's do that quickly and move on. Okay.
My question.
Hold on.
Ma'am.
Hold on. Then who was next? We had.
This is bullcrap, man.
In the Wall Street Journal, you said you were confident there are multiple suspects involved. What makes you confident in that?
Well, like, why would we tell you that? Again, again, we want to answer pertinent questions.
No, they don't.
But anything that would lead to impeding or endangering this investigation is not going to be said. Okay. And we will, as information unfolds, this is a very fluid process. And remember something too. We're doing two things. We're hunting some bad people down and we're securing the city too. We're getting ready for a Sugar Bowl tomorrow. So if y'all would, again, if you have questions regarding Sugar Bowl, the safety of the city, or something to that effect, we're happy to answer.
Over here.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Alyssa.
Usually in parts of the French Quarter, specifically in parts of Bourbon Street, there are bollards. We're hearing that some of those may have been down because of repairs. Can you speak to that? And maybe was there any backup option of putting a truck there or NOPD car there?
Well, let me tell you, yeah, one, I'm going to let the mayor answer. I want you to know that's one of the first things I thought of this morning when the mayor called me. Okay. And I will tell you that whatever the problem was is going to be solved.
Thank you, Governor.
There was not an overlap in security.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for
I
the
missed it.
question. I do understand that it's been on your radar
Here we go.
since this morning. As it relates to the bollards on Bourbon Street, over 10 years ago, excuse me. Okay. Over 10 years ago, the city of New Orleans implemented an infrastructure project placing bollards on Bourbon Street. Shortly thereafter, the malfunctions of those bollards ensued from Mardi Gras beads on down. But the New Orleans Police Department, of course, deemed them inefficient because they did not operate the way that they were intended to do. Because the city of New Orleans is hosting Super Bowl this year, it gave the city of New Orleans an opportunity to go further and deeper with infrastructure improvements, as we've been talking about. So as a result of that, we were able to build in bollard replacement into our Super Bowl infrastructure package. And because of that, the city of New Orleans has moved forward with that infrastructure that is nearing completion.
That's unacceptable.
Bollards were not up because they are near completion, with the expectation of being completed, of course, by Super Bowl.
A gap in
way
security.
before Super Bowl. So that is the reason. Now, the New Orleans Police Department and Chief, you can speak to the deployment.
Here we go.
To
Gap in
respond to
security.
our needs and existing conditions.
All right, so we have been aware of the Bollard situation for a long time, and we did indeed harden those target areas where the bollards are. We have patrol cars out there as a hard target, as well as with barriers.
Pedestrian
And I wanna
barriers.
Share with y'all, if you did not know, that this particular terrorist drove around onto the sidewalk.
No way!
And got around the hard target where he did have a car there. We had barriers there. We had officers there, and they still got around. Now, the wedges that you see out there as well, we knew that that had malfunction problems. And I want you to understand, let's say we put the wedge up and it got stuck. There is no way that ambulance could get in or out. People couldn't get in and out. So we knew that these were malfunction. So we did indeed have a plan, but the terrorists
No, you didn't.
defeated it.
A follow-up, if I may.
That was not secure.
We recognize we got a problem right here, right? We're going to fix it. It is going to be a top priority as we go into the Super Bowl and Mardi Gras. And the solution that we're going to come up with is going to be a permanent one. It's going to be placed into the standard operating procedure of having major events and securing that quarter.
A follow-up, if I may. Obviously, Sugar Bowl postponed till tomorrow, but I'm sure after that game, a lot of people are going to want to celebrate. Are there plans to keep Bourbon Street closed? What does that look like?
So right now, Bourbon Street is an active crime scene, and the FBI is in charge of it. When they clear it, and it does not become an active crime scene anymore, we're going to open it up. Potentially.
Can we ask about this military police presence? Is that what that you want to call it? Is this a private security like Blackwater? Also, would that be a first that a private security firm is mobilized to supplement local and state law
No. We're not. This is our National Guard. These are our citizens that we bring in. It's a military police company that we recognize. We need some more resources. We need some more boots on the ground because, again, what we're doing now is twofold. We've got an active investigation and we've got enhanced security. Before this event, we were just enhancing and working on security. So we brought some additional resources.
Jesse Kurtz with NBC News. Thank you for holding the press briefing. I just want to clarify something first. You were just talking about bollards that are being repaired, talking about a lift gate that are replaced and then a lift gate that's not been working. Was there a vehicle in place of that lift gate last night? Were there things in place of those bollards which are being
Sure,
repaired?
the chief spoke to the plan in place, and that is yes. That was indeed.
So anything that is currently in the midst of being repaired had a backup replacement.
It had vehicles and officers were there where all of those ballasts have been. We had that. We knew. So we did have it. And like I said,
Bull crap.
this went all the way around up onto the sidewalk.
Really?
And
What about for the lift gate? Was there a vehicle like backing in and out to block that lift gate area, or was that just down and open? That's what we were with.
Captain. The reason I'm calling the captain, he's the captain over that district, and that is a question I'm going to let him address for you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Captain LaJean Roberts of the 8th District. Yes, we did have a vehicle strategically placed right in front of the wedge, preventing access onto the roadway.
And in terms of the framework of security that was already in place on Bourbon Street, I know this is an ongoing project of improvement, but with how that was all aligned, was someone getting up on a sidewalk considered impossible or nearly impossible? Or is this not something you expected you would have to encounter?
Yes, of course, it wasn't something we expected to account for. The bollards they're actually wedges. They're strategically placed 5 locations throughout the French Quarter on the roadway. This particular terrorist drove onto the sidewalk behind the police car to gain access to the 100 block of Bourbon Street.
You defeated your security.
Driving down Bourbon Street, why weren't you worried about someone driving up the sidewalk in the same way, or at least bracing for you in the same way?
Okay. All right, look. We can go on what ifs forever. This is evil. And that guy could have easily gone down the sidewalk of Canal Street, where there were a ton of pedestrians on there as well.
And there are.
That's right. You're right.
So that's
right.
Hold on a second. We gotta move on.
Just want you to know, however, we recognize, I said earlier, that where there are defects in this system, we are going to be transparent and we are going to address them with the city and make sure
We know where they are.
that we
just talked
fill
about
those
it.
gaps as best we can. Yeah.
Yeah, Chelsea Grace with Axios. I have a question just about sort of ongoing public safety today. Special Agent mentioned 2 possible IEDs. Were those in the same location? Should residents in the French Quarter or elsewhere be concerned about potential other situations?
The 2 IEDs, they were in different locations. And what we've done in conjunction with our local and state partners, we've gone through and done a sweep to identify anything that we thought was suspicious. And we have not. However, as I said before, if the public sees something, please reach out to us. That way we can go through and verify that we did not miss anything. But we conducted initial sweeps, I think, starting shortly after our initial
Yes, I'm going to thank you, Agent. I do want to share that we have a plan and we have been implementing that plan. One of those plans is that we have swept all of these areas. The word swept means we have put officers out there as a grid, walking down the streets, every street, in the French Quarter looking for suspicious packages, bags, ice chest, you name it. And they have been walking it as a grid. We've been doing the same thing on Poydras and all the accesses into the Superdome. Part of the safety plan is we have bomb dogs out there sweeping the Superdome and all the exterior area, and we're locking that down. That will be locked down through the game tomorrow. So that's a part of that safety plan, and we've already been implementing it.
Okay, thank you all for coming out.
Question back here for the governor on the MPs. How many MPs will be deployed to New Orleans?
Right now, there's I think it's a General Freelo, 100?
100.
100, and, yep. All right, thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
What gives you the confidence tomorrow night it'll be safe? Right.
I'm gonna be there.
Yes,
Me too.
You're all saying you're taking improvements, sir.
Yeah, we're gonna be there.
Welcome back, everybody. We are back live in the Channel 4 studios here on WWL TV and WWL Plus. I'm Katie Moore. And just to recap quickly, this is a news conference with a number of investigative agencies after this terrorist attack that happened in the French Quarter early this morning. Some of the high points of new information that we received out of this press conference. First, the FBI says they do not believe that this suspect acted alone. This 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar, they do not believe that he acted alone in this, and they are actively searching for other suspects and potential connections that he may have had. That is new information. Additionally, he was a U.S. Army veteran. Now, the FBI did say in this press conference that they believe that they're trying to figure out whether or not he was honorably or dishonorably discharged from the Army, but that is something that they're a lead that they're continuing to follow. In addition, they confirmed that 2 IEDs have been found and neutralized around the French Quarter and New Orleans. That is the number that we have at this point. Investigative reporter, Chief Investigator David Hammer with me here. We were thinking it may have been more than that earlier today, but now the FBI saying that there have been 2 found.
That there were 2 IEDs, additional IEDs found and rendered safe. That's specifically what the Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Alicia Duncan, said at the press conference. But that doesn't mean that there weren't others that could potentially have been IEDs. And we know that there were additional, at least 2 additional charges when they were looking at suspicious packages along Bourbon Street and at the Jack's Brewery.
Okay, so we don't know if those were actual IEDs. We just know that they were suspicious packages and that they were fully investigated. The FBI said they're continuing to try and sweep New Orleans, lots of different areas, anywhere that they're getting tips about, and they are actually asking for additional information. They clearly need those tips, again, because they are saying they do not believe that this suspected terrorist acted alone.
Yeah, Katie, I think that's really the key, that we can see how fast this is moving. From the press conference earlier this morning, Alicia Duncan, the FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge, initially said that it was not terrorism. Now they are saying it is definitively terrorism, and that's what this investigation is. And we had references in this press conference to catching additional suspects. So they are continuing to search for additional people. And as you said, Duncan now says that they believe that he did not act alone.
Yes, I've been hearing from my law enforcement sources all morning that there have been different operations that have been going on in different parts of the city where law enforcement, the FBI, the NOPD, other investigative agencies have been following leads. And you can tell that's happening because we're hearing buzz that, there's police activity in different neighborhoods that we just haven't been able to confirm. We do know that that's happening. And obviously the FBI is telling us that is, in fact, what's been going on throughout the morning. And they're going to continue that effort as we go on throughout the day.
Right. And
all right, guys, what I'm going to do is, by the way, hi, Johnny, how you doing, bud? I'm going to go back to something real quick just to show you guys before we sign off of here. And I'll put a video out on this to explain this. As you guys know, I'm here in Louisiana, and I used to work in the New Orleans area with Energy Corporation. It's the utility company down here. I worked there for 11 years. Our corporate office was in New Orleans, 10-minute walk from here. I'm going to show you where the security failed. Admittedly, they just admitted this. We talked about it earlier this morning before this press conference, but this is definitely what happened. So, all right, this is essentially the entryway to Bourbon Street. If you look, we're looking down Bourbon Street here. This is Canal Street that runs left and right. That's Canal Street going down there. That's heading towards the aquarium. And that's heading further into the city. You see we have the trolleys right there as well. This is a pretty popular area, but it's wide open. There's about 6 lanes of traffic here. And then it bottlenecks into here. Bottlenecks into Bourbon Street. And this is where everything took place. Okay, the guy entered Bourbon Street right here. I don't know what direction he came from, but he came from Canal Street, entered into Bourbon Street. This is the area right here that I want to focus on. Okay. There are a couple of things to look at here. Wait, did I just pass it up? Yeah, I passed it up. This thing right here. This is what they call the wedge in New Orleans. All right. As you can see, this thing pops up. It rises up at about a 45-degree angle. This silver box to the right, that's the motor in it. Okay. This thing is meant to be raised or lowered, and it can be done remotely, of course. You see the hydraulic little things on it that push it up or down. This thing is meant to keep traffic off Bourbon Street. Now, I want to make this very clear. These people are acting like they have a way of keeping Bourbon Street secure. They don't. This wedge, if it worked properly, and it's important that we say if it worked properly because it doesn't, and they admittedly said this is non-operational right now. You're talking about a city where millions of people come a year, and they've got a security piece of equipment that simply doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's inoperable right now, they claim. Now, look at this thing. Any of you that know anything about anything, we're talking about hydraulics and a motor and likely some kind of radio frequency receiver. That's it. What you see is what this thing is. There's nothing more to see. This is not more complicated than what you look at or looking at right here. This is it. But yet they can't keep this thing working for some reason. Again, hydraulics, a motor, and some electronics. That is it. There's not like there's some kind of quantum physics involved with keeping this thing working. It's simple maintenance is all that it is. Yet they can't make it work. But if you look where these people are walking right here. Sidewalk. Every vehicle I own could drive between their cute little wedge and the side of that's a Walgreens right there, and the side of that Walgreens on that sidewalk. So if the wedge even worked, again, which it did not, you drive around the sidewalk. Now, these are the bollards that they're talking about. These bollards right here, obviously the back bollards slide into the middle to block this sidewalk, this street right here. So the two in the front that we see closest to us apparently do not move. They're stationary. But the two in the back slide along this little grid right here, this little track, and come forward to block off. So you have 4 laid out in a row where a vehicle can't come. This area off to the left where you see the trash can is probably the easiest way to get around bollards that I've ever seen. This tells me that these bollards are not there for security reasons. They're there simply to keep local traffic from making the mistake of driving down Bourbon Street whenever they're not supposed to. When Bourbon Street has been rendered to be only usable by pedestrians, they roll the bollards out, and that's a sign to local people driving, don't drive down here. Again, if it were for secure reasons, there would either be bollards on the sidewalk or there would be something on the sidewalk. But clearly, if somebody wanted to, in any type of vehicle, it doesn't take an off-road vehicle, you simply drive around the bollards. Yeah, you got to plow over a trash can, but that's not a bollard. You could easily defeat that. Now, what they are saying is, they admitted this. They're telling us they did not secure Bourbon Street, knowing the Sugar Bowl was here and New Year's Eve, which is a big night in New Orleans. Their claim is Two things. One is that the wedge, which again, that's what they call it, the wedge that you see right there, the white thing that raises up to block traffic, it didn't work. It was inoperable. You know what their fix was? Their fix was to park a law enforcement vehicle in front of that. In a state of shock, it appeared, the police chief, Kirkpatrick, the DEI hired lady with the red rimmed glasses, was amazed whenever they said, if you parked a vehicle right there, how did the terrorist get on Bourbon Street? She goes, he drove around the vehicle. He drove on the sidewalk. In a state of shock, she couldn't believe that a terrorist who drove from Texas to kill people would, the nerve of him to drive on the sidewalk. He drove on the sidewalk. We never saw that coming. They admitted in this press conference that they allowed this to happen. They admitted the bollards are not down there. The ones that we're looking at, this is Google Maps, by the way, not a police report or whatever, not police video or pictures. So this is an older picture. So the bollards that are actually here, they're not there right now because they're replacing them to get ready for the Super Bowl. So instead of being ready with additional security to overlap, to create or eliminate this gap that they created by removing these bollards, they just removed them and said, we'll replace them whenever. And oh, by the way, since our wedge doesn't work, we're going to park a car in front of it. So they simply parked a vehicle there. Excuse me. Excuse me. So our terrorist friend, seeing the police car parked in front of the inoperable wedge, decided he would just drive onto the sidewalk and drove around the police car and onto Bourbon Street where there were no bollards and proceeded down Bourbon Street and mowed down 40 people, killing 10 that we know of so far and injuring another 35. That's the New Orleans mayor and police department sitting here telling you how they screwed up and allowed this to happen. That is absolutely incredible. These families who lost their loved ones here, somebody's about to pay a lot of money out. Somebody is crapping in their pants right now. The New Orleans attorneys are no doubt working overtime to create a better narrative because this press conference that they just had did everything that we said it was going to do. It exposed the failures that they had. We talked about the lack that they had of the overlap in security before they had the press conference, and everything that we said was probably the case, they confirmed it. This is going to become a mess. That's why they don't want to talk at the press conference. That's why they don't want to answer any questions, because everything they say is going to reveal the holes in security that they had. Now, I guarantee you, tomorrow night, when this game is played, you are going to see either police barricades completely blocking off Bourbon Street where you could only walk on it and not drive on it, or what I mentioned earlier, those long concrete barriers will be in place in front of Bourbon Street where you cannot drive down there. These people allow this to happen. I've been to Bourbon Street probably 100 times. There is nothing secure about Bourbon Street. Never has been. I worked there 30 years ago. And it was never, ever secure, ever. It's always had ways that anyone could drive onto a sidewalk or just straight through the bollards. The bollards are hardly ever in place. Some of them are. Granted, I have seen some of the bollards in place before, but rarely ever. And where the bollards are, you can easily drive around the bollards. This has never been secure to keep people safe. The bollards and everything you see on Bourbon Street was never meant, I have to repeat this, it was never meant to keep the people, the pedestrians on Bourbon Street safe. It was never meant for that. All it was a deterrent, a deterrent to keep anybody who accidentally turned on to Bourbon Street, because Bourbon Street is open during the day. You can drive through Bourbon Street. But at night, especially in times like last night and big events like what's going on now, the bollards are supposed to be in place, and Bourbon Street is pedestrian traffic only, no vehicles. Those bollards and everything else they have there are simply, it's no more than a plastic sign that you would put up saying street closed, pedestrian traffic only. That's it. So there was never anything in place to keep the people walking on Bourbon Street safe, ever. That was never there. And these people are acting like they had something in place, and they don't. Again, the little wedge they had, I am blown away that they would have the nerve to sit here and describe that this wedge system that they have doesn't work. That's what she said. The police chief said, oh, this thing never works. So it was down last night. We had a police car parked in front of it instead. That's incredibly, that's so bold to say out loud, knowing what just happened. These people were not prepared. This was allowed to happen. I don't think on purpose, but it was allowed to happen because these people are inept. Unbelievable, guys. Guys, I'm gonna get out of here. I will likely put a video together on this because a lot of people they don't understand the complexities of Bourbon Street. New Orleans is a strange place. It's a weird dynamic. Everything is a lot of one-way streets. Some streets are closed. It's just the whole Bourbon Street area, especially where it ties in the canal, because canal is so crazy, wide open and big and so busy. And then it bottlenecks right into Bourbon Street. It seems like something that might have gotten away from them the way they describe it. It didn't get away from them. This bottlenecks beautifully from a security standpoint to where you could easily secure Bourbon Street. And they simply did not do it. Guys, let me move on from this. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. A lot of you stayed on here. We've had a lot of people in the stream. Thank you guys so much. Everybody that contributed to the channel, thank you a lot. I will be putting a video out. Don't know if I can get it out today. I might. But I will essentially go back through and do exactly what I just described. So you may not even want to watch the video because it's going to be more of what I just described to you so other people can see this and realize that Bourbon Street, it was a ticking time bomb. This was going to happen at some point. Again, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Please, if you don't mind, like, subscribe, share the videos if you can. Let people know what we're doing over here. Obviously, YouTube is not real fond of my channel, so I don't get a whole lot of good treatment from them, if you will. I will say this. Unfortunately, we're dealing with something like this on January 1st, but happy New Year's to all of you guys out there. I love you guys. I thank you so much for always checking in with me. And by the way, real quick, I want you guys to know, I haven't put a video out on the Gun Violence Archives lies about mass shootings towards the end of the year because I was waiting for the final numbers to come in. And obviously today being the first, they are done. So I'll be working at my desk the next couple of days, putting together my final charts for my year-to-date review of the Gun Violence Archives lies. And I will be sharing that with you guys. So look forward to that in a couple of days, and I'll make all those slides available to you guys online as well. Thanks again, guys. We'll talk to you all soon.